On the top floor, James Everhart stood at the window of his corner office, his tall frame cutting a sharp silhouette against the cityscape. His steel-blue eyes surveyed the urban landscape below, yet his mind wandered to the melody that had been drifting up from the ground floor for weeks. It wasn't supposed to matter. Nothing was supposed to penetrate the carefully constructed walls of Everhart Technologies' CEO. At 35, James had mastered the art of emotional distance, wearing his tailored suits like armor and his success like a shield. But that voice, that impossibly warm, soul-stirring voice, had found a crack in his defenses. Running his fingers through his meticulously styled brown hair, he checked his reflection in the window. The perfectly trimmed beard, the crisp charcoal suit, the cold efficiency in his eyes, everything was in place, except for the unsettling warmth in his chest whenever those notes floated up from below. "Mr. Everhart?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The board meeting starts in 5 minutes. "On my way," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had become second nature. As he gathered his papers, that voice rose again, carried by the building's ventilation system. The song was different today, something about love and time, about waiting and wanting. James found himself pausing, his hand hovering over his laptop. The melody wrapped around him like a question he couldn't answer, like a warmth he'd forgotten how to feel. For a moment, just a moment, the mask slipped, and something raw and honest flickered across his face. 10 floors below, Alice Munro moved through the staff cafeteria's kitchen, like she was dancing to her own private symphony. Her natural curls were wrapped in a vibrant floral scarf, defying the corporate sterility of the building with every swaying step. She stirred a pot of her signature soup, her voice rising and falling with the steam, infusing both the air and the food with something that felt like home. "Girl, you're going to make me cry into these vegetables," Natalie King called from the prep station, her small frame radiating energy as she chopped carrots with precise movements. "How do you make even sad songs sound like hope?" Alice's warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners as she smiled, but there was a depth to them that spoke of carefully guarded wounds. "Maybe that's what hope is, Nat, finding the light in the sad songs." The lunch rush wouldn't start for another hour, but the kitchen was already alive with purpose. Alice moved between stations, checking temperatures, adjusting seasonings, her voice never faltering. She'd turned this sterile corporate cafeteria into something else entirely, a place where suits and security guards sat side by side, where administrative assistants and IT specialists found common ground over her soul-warming food. "You know," Natalie said, sliding the carrots into a waiting pot, "I saw him again yesterday, your mysterious top-floor admirer." Alice's voice hitched slightly, but she recovered smoothly, transitioning into a different song. "He's not my anything, Nat. Just another exec who probably thinks the help should be seen and not heard." "Please," Natalie scoffed, her gold-highlighted hair catching the kitchen lights as she shook her head. "That man comes down here every day now, sits at the same table, and looks at you like you're singing straight to his soul. And don't tell me you haven't noticed." "I notice everything," Alice replied, her voice carrying a hint of steel beneath its melody. "I notice how he never actually speaks to anyone, how he sits there in his perfect suits, probably judging everything and everyone. Men like that, they don't see people like us. They see furniture that happens to make their lunch." But even as she said it, Alice remembered the way his eyes had changed the first time he'd heard her sing, how something had cracked in that marble statue expression of his, how his hands had tightened around his coffee cup, as if he needed to hold on to something solid. "Maybe," Natalie conceded, but her dark eyes sparkled with mischief. "Or maybe he's just a man who forgot how to feel until he heard you sing." Alice rolled her eyes, but her voice softened as she moved into a new song, this one about hearts learning to trust again. She'd learned early that love wasn't something you could count on, that people who seemed perfect from far away were often the most broken up close. Her music was her shield, her way of feeling everything while keeping everyone at a safe distance. Up in the boardroom, James sat through another meeting about quarterly projections and market expansions, but for the first time in years, his mind wasn't fully present. Instead, it kept drifting to the voice from below, to the woman he'd only glimpsed through the kitchen service window, who moved like she was dancing to a rhythm the rest of the world had forgotten. He made a decision then, though he wouldn't admit it to himself until later. Tomorrow he would do something he'd never done in the 3 years since he'd bought this building. Tomorrow he would go down to the cafeteria himself. Not to the executive dining room on the 9th floor, but to the ground floor where her voice made everything feel alive. Tomorrow, he would finally see her face to face. As the meeting droned on, her voice drifted up through the building's bones, a melody about taking chances and breaking walls, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, James Everhart felt something crack in the perfectly constructed fortress of his heart. The song from below had found its way in, and nothing in either of their worlds would ever be quite the same again. The ground-floor cafeteria buzzed with its usual mid-morning energy when James Everhart stepped out of the elevator. His presence created an immediate ripple through the space. Conversations faltered, postures straightened, eyes darted away. He felt the weight of their attention like a familiar burden, but for once, he wasn't focused on the impression he made. His steel blue eyes searched the space until they found her. Alice Munro stood behind the service counter, her floral headscarf today a burst of deep purples and blues that made her skin glow. She was mid-conversation with a young intern, her laugh carrying across the room like warm honey, genuine and uninhibited. Something in James's chest tightened at the sound. He joined the line, hyper-aware of how out of place his bespoke suit felt among the casual Friday attire of the ground-floor staff. The line moved quickly, efficiently, and then suddenly he was there, standing before her. Alice's smile shifted when she saw him, not disappearing, but changing into something more guarded, professional. "Good morning, Mr. Everhart. What can I get for you?" Her voice, even speaking, carried traces of melody. Up close, her eyes were more fascinating than he'd imagined, warm brown with flecks of gold, direct and unflinching. James realized he'd been staring without speaking. "The soup," he managed, his usual commanding tone softening despite himself. "I hear it's exceptional." "Everything Alice makes is exceptional," Natalie chimed in from nearby, giving James a look that was equal parts assessment and challenge. "But then you'd know that, wouldn't you? Being such a regular observer and all." Alice shot her friend a warning glance before turning back to ladle soup into a bowl. Steam rose between them, carrying the aroma of herbs and spices James couldn't name. Her movements were graceful, purposeful, like each gesture was part of a dance he didn't know the steps to. "Will that be all?" Alice asked, sliding the bowl toward him. "Actually," James began, then paused. The carefully prepared words he'd rehearsed in his office vanished in the face of her direct gaze. "I wanted to tell you, your voice, when you sing, it's part of the ambience," she finished for him, her tone cooling slightly. "We try to make the cafeteria welcoming for everyone." James felt the dismissal in her words, saw the wall going up behind her eyes. He was losing her before he'd even really found her. "That's not what he started, but was cut off by the arrival of more customers. "Enjoy your soup, Mr. Everhart," Alice said, already turning to greet the next person in line. James moved to the register, paid, and found himself at his usual table, the one with the perfect view of the kitchen window. But today, watching her from a distance felt different, inadequate. He took a spoonful of soup and the flavors exploded on his tongue, complex, warming, absolutely nothing like the carefully curated meals he was used to. Like her voice, it carried something real, something that couldn't be manufactured or faked. In the kitchen, Alice tried to focus on her work, but she could feel his presence like a physical thing. "Don't," she muttered to Natalie, who hadn't stopped grinning since their interaction. "Don't what?" Natalie asked innocently, chopping herbs with precise movements. "Don't point out that the mighty James Everhart just tried to compliment your singing and ended up looking like a tongue-tied teenager. Don't mention that he's still sitting there, eating soup like it's the answer to all life's mysteries. He's probably just slumming it, trying to show he's a man of the people or something," Alice said, but her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the temperature on the stove. "Men like that, they think dropping by the staff cafeteria makes them noble." "Men like what?" Natalie challenged. "Successful, gorgeous, obviously interested? Men who think money and power give them the right to whatever catches their attention," Alice replied, her voice carrying an edge of old pain. "I'm not here to be anyone's exotic little distraction, Nat." "Maybe that's not what this is," Natalie suggested softly. "Maybe he's just a man who heard something beautiful and wants to understand where it comes from." Alice started to respond, but at that moment she glanced up and caught James's gaze through the service window. For a heartbeat, his carefully maintained facade cracked, and she saw something raw and honest in his expression. Longing, yes, but also uncertainty, fear, even. It startled her so much she forgot the next line of the song she'd been humming. James stood abruptly, leaving his half-finished soup behind. He walked to the disposal area, his movements stiff with renewed control. But instead of heading straight for the elevator, he paused at the counter again. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice low enough that only Alice could hear. "Not for the soup, for making this place feel—" He struggled for words, which seemed to frustrate him. "Real." Before she could respond, he was gone, his tall frame disappearing into the elevator. Alice stared after him, her heart beating an unfamiliar rhythm. "Well," Natalie said into the loaded silence, "that was interesting." "It was nothing," Alice insisted, but her voice wavered slightly as she started a new song, this one about hearts that speak different languages, about the danger and possibility of translation. Up in his office, James stood at his window again, looking down at the city below. The taste of her soup lingered on his tongue, but it was the look in her eyes that haunted him. The wariness, yes, but also the flash of recognition when their gazes had met, as if she'd seen something in him that he thought he'd buried too deep to find. His phone buzzed with meeting reminders. Emails demanded attention, but for the first time in years, the carefully ordered world of Everhart Technologies felt hollow. Empty of something he hadn't known he was missing, until a voice from below had reminded him it existed. He made another decision then. Tomorrow he would come back, and this time he would find the right words. What he didn't know was that Alice was already composing a new song in her head, one about walls that looked solid, until you found their cracks, about the terrifying possibility of letting someone see the real you. Neither of them was ready for what would happen when those songs finally met. The next week brought a shift in the building's rhythm. Like clockwork, James appeared in the cafeteria at 10:30 a.m. when the morning rush had ebbed, but lunch hadn't yet begun. Each day he ordered something different, as if working his way through Alice's entire menu was a business strategy he'd mapped out in one of his boardroom meetings. Today, Alice watched through the kitchen window as he sat at his usual table, suit jacket draped over his chair, a small concession to informality that she pretended not to notice. He was reviewing documents while eating her rosemary chicken, his brow furrowed in concentration. "You're singing love songs again," Natalie observed quietly, bumping Alice's hip as she passed with a tray of freshly baked rolls. "All week, it's been nothing but love songs." Alice switched mid-verse to an upbeat pop song about independence, earning a knowing laugh from her friend. "I sing all kinds of songs." Natalie hummed, unconvinced. "And I'm sure it has nothing to do with tall, dark and brooding out there who keeps finding excuses to talk to you about your exceptional cooking." Yesterday it had been questions about the spices in the curry. The day before, he'd wanted to know the secret to her cornbread. Each interaction was brief, professional, but charged with something neither of them acknowledged. "He's just being polite," Alice insisted, though she couldn't explain why her heart beat faster every time the elevator doors opened at 10:30. "Polite?" Natalie raised an eyebrow. "The man runs a multi-million-dollar tech company. He could eat at any restaurant in Portland. Instead, he's here every day, staring at you like you're a puzzle he can't solve." Before Alice could respond, the service bell rang. She turned to find James standing there, empty plate in hand. Today, he'd rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms marked with an unexpected tattoo. A small compass rose near his wrist. The sight of it, this hint of rebellion against his corporate image, made her pause. "The chicken," he said, his deep voice carrying a note of genuine appreciation, "was perfect. Thank you, Mr. Everhart." Alice kept her tone professional, even as she noticed the way his jaw clenched at the formality. "James," he corrected softly. "Please." Their eyes met, and Alice felt that now familiar jolt of connection. Up close, his eyes weren't just blue-gray. They held flecks of darker blue like storms gathering on the horizon. "James," she tested the name, watching something flicker in his expression. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. The song you were singing earlier," he began, then hesitated. "About second chances and new beginnings. I haven't heard that one before." Alice felt heat rise to her cheeks. "That's because I wrote it." Surprise and admiration crossed his face. "You write your own songs?" "Some of them." She busied herself wiping down the already clean counter. "When I have something to say that other songs can't quite express." "And what were you trying to express with that one?" The question was too direct, too personal. Alice looked up, ready to deflect, but the genuine interest in his eyes made her pause. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "the hardest part isn't finding something new. It's letting go of what you think you know." Understanding dawned in his expression, followed by something that looked like recognition. For a moment, the careful distance between them seemed to shrink. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. James checked it, his expression clouding. "I have to go. There's a situation upstairs that needs my attention." "Of course." Alice straightened, rebuilding her professional walls. "The chicken will be on the menu again next Thursday." "I'll be here," he promised, and something in his tone made it sound like more than a casual comment about lunch plans. As he walked away, Alice noticed he'd left something on the counter, a business card with a handwritten note on the back. "The song. I'd like to hear the rest of it sometime." "Don't you dare throw that away," Natalie warned, appearing at her side. "That man just gave you his personal number." "That man is my boss's boss's boss," Alice reminded her, but she slipped the card into her pocket anyway. "And he probably gives his number to lots of people." "Not like that, he doesn't." Natalie gestured to where James was now standing by the elevator, stealing one last glance at the kitchen before the doors closed. "I've worked here 3 years, and I've never seen him give his number to anyone, let alone write a note by hand." Alice started a new song, this one about the danger of reading too much into small gestures, about the wisdom of keeping your heart behind locked doors. But even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice, the way the melody kept wanting to shift into something softer, more hopeful. Up in his office, James tried to focus on the crisis at hand, a coding issue that threatened to delay their latest project, but his mind kept drifting to the way Alice's voice had softened when she spoke about her songwriting, how for a brief moment she'd let him see past her careful defenses. He found himself reaching for his phone several times throughout the afternoon, wondering if she'd message him, wondering what he'd say if she did. It was ridiculous. He had meetings to attend, decisions to make, an entire company depending on his leadership, yet all he could think about was the way she'd said his name, how different it had sounded in her voice, how everything seemed different when filtered through her presence. At the end of the day, as the building emptied and the sunset painted Portland's skyline in shades of gold, James stood at his window again. From this height, he could just barely make out movement in the cafeteria below, where Alice was closing up for the day. Even through the glass and distance, he caught fragments of her voice carried up by the evening air. She was singing that song again, her song, about second chances and new beginnings, about letting go of what you think you know. And for the first time in years, James Everhart admitted to himself that he didn't know anything at all. Not about her, not about himself, not about the strange, terrifying possibility growing between them. His phone stayed silent that night, but it didn't matter. Tomorrow was Thursday, and he'd be there at 10:30. The message arrived at midnight, when Alice was curled up on her apartment's window seat, watching Portland's rain-slicked streets glisten under streetlights. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Your song's been in my head all week. Does that happen to everyone who hears you sing?" "James." Alice stared at the screen, her heart performing an unfamiliar rhythm. After a week of carrying his business card, of composing and deleting dozens of potential messages, he had reached out first. She typed and erased 3 responses before settling on, "Only the ones who really listen." His reply came quickly, "I listen, more than you know." The next morning, something had shifted. When James arrived at his usual time, the professional distance between them felt both necessary and impossible. Alice was garnishing bowls of her famous clam chowder, her movements precise but distracted. Today's headscarf was a deep emerald that made her eyes shine, and she'd been humming love songs again despite her best intentions. "Good morning," James said, his voice carrying a new warmth that made several nearby employees look up from their phones. "Good morning," Alice replied, trying to ignore how her pulse quickened when their eyes met. "The usual table." He nodded, then added quietly, "I didn't wake you, did I? With the message?" "I was awake." She handed him a bowl, careful not to let their fingers touch. "Songwriting. Sometimes the quiet hours are the only time melodies make sense." Something shifted in his expression. "Will you share this one?" Before she could answer, the service phone rang. "Ms. Monroe, there's a situation in the executive dining room. Their chef called in sick and they have a board lunch in an hour." Alice felt the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders. The executive dining room, that carefully curated space 9 floors up, where the building's power players conducted their business over expensive wines and imported delicacies. Her domain was here, in the ground floor's honest simplicity. "I'll handle it," she said into the phone, already mentally reorganizing her day. James, who had overheard, straightened. "I can cancel the lunch." "No," Alice said firmly, untying her apron. "This is my job, and I'm good at it. All of it." She turned to Natalie. "Can you—" "Already on it," Natalie assured her, taking over the service counter. "Go show them how it's done." In the executive kitchen an hour later, Alice moved with practiced efficiency, transforming simple ingredients into dishes that would impress even the most discerning palates. She had changed into her formal chef's whites, but kept her emerald headscarf, a reminder of who she was even in this rarefied air. She didn't expect James to appear in the doorway, his presence filling the space in a way that made her hands falter slightly as she plated the main course. "The board members are raving about the appetizers," he said, loosening his tie slightly. "Apparently they've never had anything like your reinvention of classic crab cakes. Traditional recipes with unexpected twists," Alice explained, drizzling sauce with an artist's precision. "Sometimes the most surprising combinations create the best results." Their eyes met in the mirror-bright surface of a steel refrigerator, and the double meaning of her words hung in the air between them. "Like songs and soup?" James asked softly, moving closer. "Or CEOs and cafeteria chefs?" Alice's hand stilled over the plates. "That's not what I—" "Ms. Monroe?" An assistant appeared with impeccable timing. "The board is ready for the main course." The moment shattered. Alice straightened, professional mask firmly in place. "Of course, everything's ready." She followed the assistant out, carrying plates that looked like works of art, aware of James's eyes following her every movement. The board members' appreciation was evident in their expressions as she presented each dish, explaining the components with quiet confidence. "Extraordinary," one board member declared. "Why haven't we had her cooking up here before?" "Because she's the heart and soul of our ground floor operations," James answered, his tone carrying a subtle warning that made Alice glance at him sharply. "Her work there is invaluable." Later, as Alice was cleaning up the executive kitchen, she heard footsteps behind her. She knew it was James without turning around. Something in the air changed when he was near, like static before a storm. "Thank you," she said before he could speak, "for what you said in there about my work downstairs." "I meant it." He moved to stand beside her at the sink, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive but subtle, like rain on warm concrete. "But I don't think they really understood." "Understood what?" "That what you do isn't just cooking, it's connection, community." He struggled with the words, and Alice realized this was the most uncertain she'd ever seen him. "Down there, people don't just eat. They talk, share, feel comfortable being themselves. Because of you, because of your voice, your food, your way of making everything feel real," she supplied, remembering his words from weeks ago. "Real," he agreed softly. Alice turned to face him fully, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. In the polished surfaces of the executive kitchen, their reflections seemed to blur together, her colorful headscarf bright against his dark suit, her small frame, and his tall one creating an unexpectedly harmonious picture. "The song you asked about," she found herself saying. "The one from last night. It's about this, about moments when everything you think you know about yourself, about what's possible, shifts." James's hand moved as if to touch her face, then stopped, hovering in the space between them. "Will you sing it for me? Not here, not now, but somewhere else? Somewhere real?" The question carried weight, implications that made Alice's heart race. This wasn't just about music anymore, if it ever had been. "There's a small jazz club," she heard herself say, "in the Pearl District. Thursday nights they have an open mic. I sometimes perform there, when I have new songs to share." "Thursday," he repeated like a promise. Then, because they could hear voices approaching, "I should go, the board's waiting." He left her there in the gleaming kitchen, surrounded by evidence of her triumph in this upper-floor world. But it was the thought of Thursday, of singing her truth to him in her own space, that made her hands tremble as she finished cleaning up. When she finally returned downstairs, Natalie took one look at her face and knew. Something happened up there. "Nothing happened," Alice insisted. But she couldn't stop the melody that rose to her lips. A new song, one about elevators and distances, about the unexpected ways hearts find their way to each other. 9 floors up, James sat through the rest of the board meeting, making decisions worth millions of dollars while his mind kept drifting to the sound of her voice, saying Thursday, to the way the light had caught in her eyes when she'd talked about moments that shift everything you think you know. Neither of them was ready for how much would shift before Thursday arrived. Wednesday afternoon brought chaos to the carefully ordered world of Everhart Technologies. Alice heard the whispers first from the marketing team during lunch. A major security breach in one of their flagship products, stocks plummeting, emergency meetings being called. The rhythm of the building changed, tension thrumming through the air like an off-key note. "He hasn't been down all day," Natalie observed, watching Alice check the clock for the third time that hour. Not even for coffee. Why would he be? Alice kept her voice neutral as she aggressively kneaded dough for tomorrow's bread. He's doing his job, running his company. Her phone sat silent in her pocket, the late-night text conversations of the past few days now seeming like something she'd imagined. Their last exchange played in her mind. What should I expect tomorrow night? Just me, my songs, no pretenses, looking forward to it. Now, watching suited executives hurry through the cafeteria clutching tablets and phones, she wondered if she'd been naive to think they could bridge the gap between their worlds. The elevator dinged, and Alice's heart jumped, but it was only another group of stressed-looking developers huddled over their laptops as they grabbed coffee. One of them, she noticed, was crying. "Hey," she called out softly, approaching their table with a plate of freshly baked cookies. "On the house." The crying developer looked up, surprised. "Thanks, Alice, it's just, we worked so hard on that security protocol, and now you'll fix it," she said firmly, setting down the cookies. "Because that's what you do. You build things, you fix things, you make them better." Without thinking, she began to hum, not one of her usual songs, but something new, something that spoke of resilience and second chances. Around the table, tense shoulders began to relax. "Is it true?" another developer asked between bites of cookie. "About the board meeting tomorrow?" Alice's hands stilled. "What board meeting?" "Emergency session. Major shareholders flying in from everywhere. Apparently, they're talking about restructuring the entire security division." The word restructuring hit like a discordant note. Alice knew what that meant. Jobs lost, lives upended, the entire building's ecosystem thrown into chaos. Her phone buzzed. "James. I'm sorry about tomorrow night. Emergency board meeting Friday morning. Need to prepare." Before she could respond, another message. "Rain check?" Alice stared at the screen, emotion tightening her throat. It wasn't the cancellation that hurt. She understood crisis management. It was the casualness of rain check, as if their planned meeting was just another rescheduled business appointment. "You're killing that dough," Natalie observed quietly. Alice realized she'd been kneading the same batch for 20 minutes. "It needs the work." "No, it needs mercy, unlike some people we know." "Don't." Alice shaped the abused dough into loaves with sharp movements. "He's doing his job, running his company." "And that's all this is, his job?" The question hung in the air as Alice slid the bread into the oven. She thought of late-night texts about music and meaning, about the way his voice changed when they were alone, about the almost touch in the executive kitchen. "It doesn't matter what it is," she finally said. "Some distances can't be bridged." She started to sing again as she worked, but even Natalie noticed the change in her songs, from hope and possibility to older tunes about lessons learned and hearts guarded well. Upstairs, James stood at his window, phone still in hand. He'd typed and deleted a dozen better messages, trying to find words that could cross the gulf between crisis management and genuine regret. But every attempt felt hollow, inadequate. He watched a group of his security team leave the building, boxes in hand, the first casualties of what would likely be many changes to come. Their departure left a bitter taste in his mouth, like ashes of everything he'd built. His assistant appeared at the door. "Sir, the shareholders are on the video call." James straightened his tie, armor back in place. "Tell them I'll be right there." But before he turned away from the window, he caught a fragment of song drifting up from below, something about walls and warnings, about the wisdom of keeping your distance. The melody carried a new edge of pain that made his chest tighten. He'd done that, added that note of hurt to her voice. Hours later, after most of the building had emptied, James finally left his office. The elevator stopped at the ground floor. Habit, muscle memory, hope. Through the darkened cafeteria windows, he could see Alice and Natalie closing up. Alice was singing something soft and sad while she wiped down tables, her movements lacking their usual dance-like quality. His finger hovered over the open door button. "Sir?" His assistant's voice crackled through his phone. "The lawyers need those signed documents tonight." The doors closed. The elevator rose. In the cafeteria, Alice looked up at the sound of ascending machinery. For a moment she thought she'd seen, but no, just shadows and wishful thinking. "You okay?" Natalie asked, hanging up her apron. "Always am." Alice forced a smile. "It's better this way, really. Clearer. Clearer doesn't always mean better. In this case, it does." Alice gathered her things, determinedly not looking at her silent phone. "Some songs aren't meant to be sung. Some distances aren't meant to be crossed, but as they left the building, she found herself humming that new melody again, the one about resilience and second chances. Only now it carried a question she couldn't answer. What happens when the thing that needs fixing isn't code or protocols, but the walls two people build around their hearts? Tomorrow, she decided, she'd go to the jazz club anyway. She had a new song to share, one about corporate towers and ground floors, about elevators that only go up or down, never sideways, never crossing the space between what is and what might have been. She just hadn't decided yet if it was a song about endings or beginnings. 9 floors up, James stared at unsigned documents, the taste of ashes still in his mouth. On his phone, the jazz club's website showed tomorrow night's open mic schedule. He pictured Alice there, singing her truth to strangers while he sat in his office counting the cost of success. The security breach would be contained. The company would survive. But as midnight approached and Portland's rain painted his windows with silver, James Everhart wondered if surviving was the same as living. And in the quiet hours before dawn, 2 people in different parts of the city found themselves awake, listening to the rain, wondering if some distances only seem uncrossable until someone is brave enough to take the first step. The question was, who would be brave first? Friday morning dawned grey and heavy with unspoken words. The board meeting started early, filling the executive floor with sharp suits and sharper judgments. But down in the cafeteria kitchen, Alice moved through her prep work in silence, her usual songs locked behind tight lips. Okay, that's it. Natalie set down her knife with a sharp clack. I can't take the quiet anymore. You haven't sung a note all morning. Sometimes silence says more, Alice replied, checking the temperature on her ovens. She'd spent last night at the jazz club, after all. But instead of performing, she'd sat in the back, nursing a glass of wine and listening to others sing about love and loss. Their voices had filled the space where her courage should have been. The cafeteria was unusually empty. Many employees had called in sick, fearing more layoffs. Those who did come in spoke in whispers, glancing nervously at the ceiling, as if they could hear the board's deliberations through 9 floors of concrete and steel. At exactly 10:30, the elevator doors opened. Alice's heart jumped before she could stop it. But it wasn't James. It was his assistant, looking harried and exhausted. Ms. Monroe? The assistant approached the counter. Mr. Everhart asked me to get his usual. Alice's hands stayed steady as she ladled soup into a container, but her voice when she spoke carried an edge. Interesting. I wasn't aware he had a usual. The assistant shifted uncomfortably. He said you'd know. Of course she knew. She knew he preferred the corner table where the morning light hit just right. Knew he liked his coffee black, but always added a touch of cream when he thought no one was looking. Knew the way his shoulders relaxed slightly when her voice carried across the cafeteria. She knew too much about a man who sent his assistant to avoid seeing her. Here. She handed over the soup and turned away, missing the way the assistant lingered, clearly wanting to say more. Hours crawled by. Through the service window, Alice caught glimpses of people hurrying between floors, lawyers in expensive suits, IT specialists with dark circles under their eyes, HR representatives carrying stacks of papers that probably held too many endings. Your phone keeps lighting up, Natalie observed during a quiet moment. Alice glanced at the screen. 3 messages from James. I'm sorry about last night. The board meeting is intense. Trying to save as many jobs as I can. Can we talk later? She started to type, there's nothing to talk about, but deleted it. Instead, she wrote, some distances are meant to stay uncrossed. His reply came quickly. I don't believe that. Belief doesn't change reality. No, action does. Before she could respond, the service phone rang. It was his assistant again. Ms. Monroe, Mr. Everhart would like you to cater lunch for the board. Immediately. Alice closed her eyes briefly. Of course he would. But as she gathered her supplies and headed to the executive kitchen, something shifted in her expression. Natalie recognized that look. It was the same one Alice got before performing a particularly challenging song. Give them hell, Natalie whispered as Alice stepped into the elevator. The executive floor was a battlefield of spreadsheets and PowerPoints. Through the glass walls of the conference room, Alice could see James standing at the head of the table, his tie loosened, his usual perfect posture showing signs of strain. He was arguing with a silver-haired man whose Rolex probably cost more than her yearly salary. As she set up the lunch service, she caught fragments of the discussion. Complete overhaul of the security division. Stockholder confidence is paramount. We need to cut deeper. Then James's voice, firm but tired. These are people, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. The silver-haired man scoffed. People who failed to prevent a catastrophic breach. No, James's tone sharpened. People who built this company with me, who deserve a chance to fix this. Alice's hands stilled over the plates she was arranging. There was something in his voice she'd never heard before, a raw honesty that cut through corporate politics. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment," another board member commented. "Maybe," James replied. "We need more emotion in our judgment, more humanity in our decisions." Alice felt his words like a physical touch. Without planning to, she began to hum, soft and low, but clear. It was the song from yesterday, about resilience and second chances, but with a new bridge about the courage of standing your ground. The conversation in the conference room faltered. Through the glass, she saw James turn toward the sound, saw something in his expression crack open. The silver-haired man noticed. "Mr. Everhart, the projections." But James was already moving, excusing himself from the meeting. He found her in the executive kitchen, surrounded by half-plated meals and unspoken words. "That song," he said softly. "It's new. Everything feels new right now." She kept working, not meeting his eyes. Even old patterns can change if we're brave enough to break them. "Alice." Her name on his lips made her hands shake slightly. "About last night, you had a company to save, I understand. Do you?" He moved closer, into her space. "Because I don't. I don't understand how you've become the voice in my head, the rhythm I measure my days by. I don't understand why missing one night with you feels worse than watching my company's stock plummet." Alice finally looked up at him. This close, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the way his carefully maintained control was fraying at the edges. He looked more real than she'd ever seen him. "What do you want from me, James?" "Everything," he said simply. "The songs, the silence between them, the way you make everything feel possible." From the conference room, voices were rising, demanding his return, the real world pressing in. "They're waiting for you," Alice said softly. "They're always waiting." His hand found hers, warm and certain. "But right now I'm listening to a different voice." The moment stretched between them, full of possibility. Then Alice gently pulled her hand away. "Save your company first," she said. "Figure out who you are in the aftermath. Then we can talk about possibilities." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Will you be at the jazz club tonight?" "Yes." "Save me a seat." A small smile touched her lips. "That depends on how many jobs you save today." He straightened, something like hope flickering in his eyes. "Then I better get back in there and fight harder." As he returned to the board meeting, Alice began to sing again, louder this time, clear enough to carry through the glass walls. A song about battles worth fighting, about the kind of strength that comes from knowing what matters most. She saw James's shoulders straighten as her voice reached him, saw him pick up his papers with renewed purpose. And in that moment, Alice realized that sometimes the greatest distances aren't between floors or social classes, but between who we are and who we could be, if we're brave enough to cross that space between notes, between heartbeats, between what's safe and what's true. The question wasn't whether James would come to the jazz club tonight. The question was, who would they both be when he did? The Blue Note Jazz Club in Portland's Pearl District was a world away from Everhart Technologies' gleaming tower. Exposed brick walls absorbed the gentle lighting, creating intimate shadows where secrets could be shared. At the small corner table where Alice sat with Natalie, condensation dripped down untouched wine glasses as she watched the door. "He's late," Natalie observed, checking her phone. "The board meeting ended 2 hours ago." Alice smoothed her dark blue dress, a simple but elegant piece that felt worlds away from her chef's whites. Her curls were loose tonight, framing her face with soft freedom. "I saw the executives leaving." The evening's performers had already begun, filling the space with soulful melodies. Alice's name was on the list for later, a new song burning in her throat, waiting to be shared, if she had the courage to sing it. "You look amazing, by the way," Natalie said softly. "Like yourself, but more." Before Alice could respond, the door opened. James stood there, silhouetted against the streetlights, no longer in his business suit but wearing dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that made him look younger, more vulnerable. His eyes found her immediately, as if drawn by some invisible thread. "I should go powder my nose," Natalie announced with all the subtlety of a freight train. For about an hour, as Natalie slipped away, James made his way through the crowd. Up close, Alice could see the exhaustion in his face, but also something else, a lightness, almost hope. "You came," she said simply. I made a promise. He sat down, his knee brushing hers under the small table, and I had good news to share. The jobs? His smile was tired but genuine. We found a way, restructuring without layoffs. It'll mean longer hours, tighter budgets, but people get to keep their homes, their dreams. Alice felt something warm unfurl in her chest. You fought for them. Your song helped. He leaned closer, his voice dropping, reminded me what matters. The singer on stage finished her set, earning scattered applause. In the brief silence that followed, Alice felt the weight of everything unsaid between them. You look different, James observed, his eyes taking in her dress, her loose curls. Beautiful, but different. This is who I am outside the building, she said quietly. When I'm not being anyone's employee or chef or the voice that saved my soul. The raw honesty in his tone made her breath catch. Because you did, you know, one song at a time. Before she could respond, the club's owner approached their table. Alice, you're up next, honey. James straightened. You're performing? That was the original plan for yesterday. She stood, smoothing her dress again. Tonight's a second chance. As she made her way to the stage, Alice felt James's eyes following her. The spotlight was warm on her skin as she took her place at the microphone, but it was his gaze that made her feel exposed. This is a new song, she said softly into the mic, about distances and bridges, and the courage it takes to build them. The opening notes were gentle, questioning. Then her voice filled the space, raw and honest. 9 floors of silence between where I stand and where you live. Each morning I send my songs up, like prayers to a God I'm not sure believes, in simple things like coffee cups and glances that last too long to be accidents. As she sang, Alice watched James's expression change. Gone was the corporate mask, the careful control. In its place was something almost painful in its vulnerability. When she reached the bridge, their eyes met. But what if the distance isn't floors and ceilings? What if it's just the space between 2 hearts, learning to beat in time? What if all these songs I've been singing were just different ways to say I'm ready to cross that line? The final notes faded into silence before the club erupted in applause. But Alice barely heard it. She was too caught up in the way James had risen from his seat, in how he was moving through the crowd toward her with purpose. He reached her just as she stepped off the stage. Without a word, he took her hand and led her toward the club's small courtyard. The night air was cool against her heated skin, string lights twinkling above them like stars. James, I need to tell you something, he interrupted, still holding her hand. That night weeks ago when I first heard your voice through the building's vents, I was about to sign papers to sell the company. Alice felt her heart skip. What? I'd lost something. Purpose. Meaning. The tower felt like a prison I'd built myself. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. Then I heard you sing about hope, about real things, and I realized what was missing. What? Life. He stepped closer. Real life. The kind that exists in kitchens and jazz clubs. In songs that tell the truth. In eyes that see right through corporate armor. Alice felt tears threatening. I'm just a chef who likes to sing. No. His free hand came up to cup her cheek. You're the voice that reminded me what matters. The courage that showed me how to fight for what's right. The truth I've been looking for without knowing it. In the distance, another singer had taken the stage, their melody drifting out to the courtyard. But Alice barely heard it over the sound of her own heart. What are we doing, James? Breaking patterns, he whispered. Crossing distances. Building bridges. His forehead touched hers. If you'll let me. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility. Then Alice did something she'd been wanting to do for weeks. She sang, just for him, soft and low, a new melody about taking chances, about the courage of letting someone see all of you. James's breath caught. Then slowly, reverently, he tilted her face up to his. But before their lips could meet, the courtyard door burst open. Natalie stood there, phone in hand, face pale. Alice, the kitchen. There's been a fire. The spell broke. Reality crashed back in. Alice stepped back from James, already reaching for her phone. How bad? Bad enough. Natalie's eyes were apologetic. The night cleaning crew called it in. They're saying it might be deliberate. The word hung in the air like smoke. Alice felt James tense beside her, CEO mode engaging instantly. I'll drive, he said, keys already in hand. As they rushed to his car, Alice couldn't help thinking about timing and fate and the cruel joke of almost moments. But then James caught her hand again, squeezing it tight, and she realized maybe this wasn't an interruption. Maybe it was just the universe's way of showing them that crossing distances meant facing real challenges together. The question was, were they ready? The scent of smoke hung heavy in the Portland night air as James's car pulled up to Everhart Technologies. Fire trucks cast rotating red lights across the building's glass facade, transforming the familiar tower into something alien and threatening. Alice was out of the car before it fully stopped, her blue dress incongruous among the firefighters' heavy gear. The ground-floor cafeteria doors were propped open, letting out tendrils of dark smoke. As they approached, a fire marshal emerged from the haze. "Kitchen's secure now," he reported, looking between James and Alice. "The fire was contained to the storage area, but the damage is significant." Alice pushed past him into the cafeteria. The familiar space felt wrong. Water pooled on the floor, the air thick with the acrid smell of burnt plastic and scorched metal. But it was the kitchen that made her stop dead in her tracks. Her sanctuary was in ruins. The storage area, where she kept her dry goods and equipment, was a blackened cave. Worse were the words spray-painted on the far wall, revealed by the emergency lights. "Stay in your place." Security footage. James's voice was deadly quiet behind her. "Corrupted," the fire marshal replied. "Whoever did this knew the system." Alice moved through the space like a ghost, her fingers trailing along countertops she'd polished just hours ago. Her spice rack, carefully curated over years, was nothing but broken glass and ashes. The drawer where she kept her mother's handwritten recipes was waterlogged, the ink running like tears. "The structural damage is minimal," the marshal continued, "but you'll need a complete kitchen renovation before—" "Out!" James's command cut through the chaos. "Everyone out. Give us a moment." The authority in his voice cleared the room instantly. Even Natalie, who had been hovering anxiously nearby, retreated to the cafeteria proper. In the sudden quiet, Alice could hear water dripping somewhere in the darkness. "Your recipes," James said softly, watching her try to salvage papers from the drawer. "I'm so sorry. It's not about the recipes." Alice's voice was steady, but her hands shook as she carefully laid the soggy papers out. "This kitchen, it was more than just a place to cook. It was where I found my voice, where I could be real," he finished. Then, more quietly, "Where you taught me to be real too." She turned to face him, taking in how the emergency lights caught the silver at his temples, how his casual clothes were now smudged with soot from where he'd helped her check the damage. "Someone from the company did this," she said, not a question. "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Someone who didn't like the changes I announced today. Someone who wanted to send a message. To you, to us." He moved closer, his shoes splashing in the puddles. "They saw what was happening, how you were changing things. Not just the kitchen, but the whole building's culture. Me." Alice looked around at her ruined domain, at the threatening words on the wall. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I should stay in my place." "No." James's voice was fierce. "Your place is wherever you choose to be, whether that's in this kitchen or on that stage or—" He hesitated, then added softly, "or with me." The words hung in the smoke-tinged air between them. Alice felt tears finally threatening, not for the kitchen, but for the simple truth in his voice. "I don't know how to be small," she whispered, "how to sing quietly, or love halfway." "Good." He closed the distance between them, his hands finding her shoulders. "Because I'm tired of living small, of caring more about stock prices than the people who make this place work, of hiding behind 9 floors of glass and steel instead of facing what matters." From the cafeteria, they could hear voices approaching. Insurance adjusters, cleanup crews, the reality of the situation demanding attention. But for a moment, they stayed still, surrounded by the ruins of one dream and perhaps the beginning of another. "I should call my staff," Alice said finally. "Let them know what happened." "Already done." Natalie appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "And you both should see this." She held up her phone, showing a cascade of social media posts. The fire had drawn attention, and employees from every floor were sharing stories about Alice's cooking, her songs, how she'd made the cafeteria the heart of the building. More than that, they were organizing offers to help clean up, to lend equipment, to bring in food until the kitchen was restored. "See?" James's voice was soft in Alice's ear. "You built more than just a kitchen here. You built a community." Alice stared at the outpouring of support, feeling something shift in her chest. Without thinking, she began to hum, not one of her usual songs, but something new, something about ashes and rebirth, about how sometimes you have to lose everything to find what was there all along. "There's that voice," James murmured, "the one that changes everything." She turned in his arms, really looking at him, at the soot on his expensive sweater, the worry in his eyes, the way he held her like she was something precious, but not fragile. "Help me rebuild it," she said suddenly. "Not just the kitchen, everything. Make it better, make it real. Together? Together." She glanced at the threatening words on the wall. "Let them try to stop us." He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his whole face. "I think I feel a corporate restructuring coming on. Starting with security personnel and—" He paused, something occurring to him. "And maybe the whole 9th floor. The executive dining room?" Alice raised an eyebrow. "We don't need 2 kitchens in this building." His eyes held a challenge. "Unless you're not ready to cook for the board regularly." "Oh, I'm ready," her chin lifted. "But they better be ready for my kind of food, my kind of music. They don't have a choice." He brushed a curl from her face, his touch impossibly gentle. "Because I'm done with artificial boundaries. Done pretending I don't wait all day to hear your voice. Done acting like I haven't been falling in love with you since the first note." The word love echoed in the damaged kitchen, more powerful than any threat on the walls. Alice felt it resonate in her bones, in the melody that was already forming in her heart. "Good," she whispered, "because I'm done pretending too." This time, when he leaned down to kiss her, there were no interruptions. In the ruins of her kitchen, surrounded by smoke and hope and possibility, their lips met in a kiss that felt like the beginning of a whole new song. From the doorway, Natalie watched with satisfaction before quietly slipping away to handle the gathering crowd of helpers. She knew her friend well enough to know that tomorrow, Alice would face this challenge head-on, would rebuild something even more beautiful from the ashes. But tonight was for a different kind of music. For the song of 2 hearts finally finding their harmony. The question wasn't whether they would rebuild. The question was, how high would they soar once they did? Monday morning arrived with the sound of construction. The ground floor cafeteria had been transformed into a war room of blueprints and paint samples, with Alice at the center of the controlled chaos. Her hair was pulled back in a bright yellow scarf that matched the hard hat sitting on the table beside her. "The insurance company approved the full claim," James announced, navigating through the maze of contractors to reach her side. He'd abandoned his usual suit for dark jeans and a black Henley, ready to get his hands dirty. "And the board meeting is in an hour. Are you ready?" Alice looked up from the kitchen plans she'd been reviewing. The past 2 days had been a whirlwind of police reports, insurance adjusters, and quiet investigations into who might have targeted her kitchen. "Are you?" he countered, glancing at the folder in her hands. "You don't have to do this today." "Yes, I do." Her voice was firm. "If we're really breaking down walls, let's break them all." The elevator ride to the 9th floor felt different now. James's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. When the doors opened, his assistant's eyes widened at their joined hands, but she quickly masked her surprise. "The board is waiting," she announced, and Mr. Richardson arrived early. Alice felt James tense beside her. Lawrence Richardson, the silver-haired board member who'd argued for deeper cuts during the security crisis. The most likely suspect behind the kitchen fire, though they had no proof yet. "Perfect," James said quietly. "Let him see exactly what he failed to destroy." The boardroom fell silent as they entered together. Richardson's eyes narrowed at their clasped hands, at the way James pulled out a chair for Alice at the head of the table beside him. "What is the meaning of this?" Richardson's voice carried decades of corporate authority. "This is a closed board meeting, not a staff lunch. Ms. Monroe is here." James's tone was steel wrapped in silk, "to present the new Unified Dining Services proposal. A merger of the ground floor and executive dining operations, with her as executive chef and director of food services." The room erupted in murmurs. Richardson's face flushed dark red. "This is unprecedented," he sputtered. "She's a cafeteria cook, for God's sake. She's a classically trained chef who's been running a successful operation that serves hundreds daily," James corrected coldly. "And she's the heart of this company's culture, something recent events have made very clear." Alice stood smoothing her charcoal blazer, a power suit that somehow still felt true to herself, if I may. Without waiting for permission, she began distributing presentation folders. "Inside you'll find my proposal for a complete restructuring of the building's dining services. 1 kitchen, serving all floors, democratic access to quality food, community tables in place of executive dining rooms, and most importantly," she met Richardson's glare steadily, "a budget that saves this company nearly $500,000 annually while improving food quality and employee satisfaction." "This is absurd," Richardson snapped. Next, you'll suggest we add a dance floor and karaoke machine. Actually, James interrupted smoothly, live music during lunch hours has shown to improve productivity and workplace satisfaction in multiple studies, which you'd know if you'd ever bothered to listen when Alice sings. A younger board member leaned forward, studying the proposal. These numbers are impressive, and the employee response to the fire, I've never seen such solidarity across departments. Because Ms. Monroe built more than a kitchen, another board member added. She built relationships, trust, the kind of corporate culture we pay consultants millions to try to create. Richardson stood abruptly. This is a publicly traded company, not a social experiment, and this inappropriate relationship between a CEO and a subordinate is none of your concern, James cut in, his voice deadly quiet. But since you mentioned inappropriate behavior, he nodded to his assistant, who distributed another set of folders. Our investigation into the kitchen fire has been enlightening. Alice watched Richardson's face pale as he opened the folder. Inside was evidence, security footage recovered from backup servers, financial records showing suspicious transfers, emails discussing dealing with the problem downstairs. You didn't corrupt all the cameras, James continued conversationally. And you really should have used a better encryption service for those emails to your associates. You can't prove anything, Richardson hissed, but his hands shook as he closed the folder. The police disagree. James's smile was arctic. They're very interested in corporate sabotage cases, especially ones involving arson. The boardroom doors opened, and 2 police detectives entered. Richardson looked wildly around the table, finding no allies in the faces of his fellow board members. As the detectives led Richardson away, Alice felt no satisfaction, only sadness for a man who feared change so much he'd try to burn it away. Well, one of the older board members broke the heavy silence. I believe we were discussing Ms. Monroe's proposal. I, for one, would like to hear more about this community table concept. The next hour passed in detailed discussions of budgets and logistics. But underneath the corporate talk, Alice felt something profound shifting in the building's very foundation. Old hierarchies crumbling, new connections forming. When the meeting ended, the board voted unanimously to approve her proposal and to accept Richardson's immediate resignation. Later, standing in the construction zone that would become their new unified kitchen, Alice hummed thoughtfully while reviewing material samples. That's a new one, James observed, coming up behind her to wrap his arms around her waist. Just came to me, she smiled, leaning back against him. A song about tearing down walls to let the light in. Speaking of walls, he turned her gently to face the space. I had the architects make a change to the plans. Show her. He nodded to the contractor. The contractor unrolled a new blueprint. There, in the center of the redesigned kitchen, was a small stage. Every kitchen needs its heart, James said softly, and yours has always been your voice. Alice stared at the plans, emotion tightening her throat. The stage was positioned so her voice would carry through both the public dining area and the cooking space, bringing together everything she was, everything she loved. Bold move, she managed finally, giving me an official platform. I'm counting on it. His eyes held hers. This company needs your voice. All of it. The songs, the truth, the courage to change. She touched the blueprint gently. You know this means no more hiding. No more pretending we're just CEO and chef. Good. He kissed her temple. I'm tired of pretending I don't light up every time you walk into a room, that I don't fall more in love with you every time you challenge the status quo. From above came the sound of drilling as workers began removing the old executive dining room walls. Below, construction crews were laying the foundation for something new, not just a kitchen, but a symbol of transformation. We're really doing this, Alice marveled. All of it. We are. James's voice held absolute certainty, and anyone who doesn't like it can eat somewhere else. She laughed, then sobered. There will be others like Richardson, people who think I'm reaching above my station. Let them talk. His arms tightened around her. We'll change this place one song, one meal, one broken barrier at a time. Alice turned in his embrace, a new melody already forming in her heart. This one was about courage and change, about love that breaks rules and rebuilds worlds. And as their lips met in the dust and promise of their evolving dream, she knew the real reconstruction wasn't happening in the walls around them. It was happening in the space between their hearts, where music and courage and love were building something stronger than steel and glass. Something real. 3 months later, the scent of fresh herbs and baking bread filled the transformed space that had once been divided between upstairs and downstairs. And The new unified kitchen gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment, while the dining area's warm woods and exposed brick created an atmosphere that somehow managed to be both elegant and welcoming. Alice stood on her small stage, performing the final sound check for the grand reopening. Her voice carried perfectly through the carefully designed acoustics, reaching every corner of the space. She wore a deep purple dress that complemented her skin tone, her curls adorned with small white flowers that Natalie had woven in that morning. "Ready for tonight?" Natalie asked, adjusting table settings at the new community tables, long handcrafted pieces that encouraged conversation between all levels of the company. Almost. Alice touched the string of her mother's pearls at her neck, a gift she'd thought lost in the fire until James had found them in the ruins, somehow unscathed. Just one more thing to perfect. She began to sing, testing out a new song she'd written specifically for this evening. It was about transformation, about the courage to break molds and rebuild stronger, about love that transcends flaws and titles and expectations. From the kitchen doorway, James watched her with unconcealed admiration. These past months had changed him too. He smiled more easily now, had learned to loosen his tie and roll up his sleeves, to value connection over protocol. "The press is already gathering outside," his assistant informed him quietly. "Along with half the tech industry in Portland, everyone wants to see how Everhart Technologies revolutionized corporate culture through cuisine and community." "Let them look," James replied, his eyes never leaving Alice. "Let them see what's possible when you stop building walls and start building bridges." The evening's event wasn't just a kitchen reopening. It was a statement about equality, about innovation, about the power of authentic leadership. Every major business publication had requested coverage, fascinated by the story of a CEO and a chef who had torn down corporate hierarchies and rebuilt something revolutionary in their place. Alice finished her sound check and stepped down from the stage, immediately surrounded by her expanded kitchen staff. She'd insisted on keeping her original team, while adding new members, creating a blend of experience and fresh energy that mirrored the building's broader transformation. "The first guests arrive in an hour," she reminded them. "Remember, tonight we're not just serving food, we're serving possibility." As her team dispersed to their stations, James approached, sliding an arm around her waist. "Nervous? About cooking?" "Never." She leaned into him. "About singing our story to half of corporate America?" "Maybe a little." "Don't be." He kissed her temple. "Your voice changed this whole building. Let it change more." The past months hadn't all been smooth sailing. There had been resignations from old guard executives who couldn't adapt, skeptical articles about inappropriate workplace relationships, whispered doubts about mixing social consciousness with shareholder value. But the numbers told a different story. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. Productivity had soared. The company's reputation for innovation had attracted top talent who valued culture as much as compensation. And the waiting list for lunch reservations from other companies' executives, hoping to understand their secret, had become almost comical. "Ms. Monroe?" A young intern approached hesitantly. "The news crews want to know if you'll do the interview before or after your performance." "After," James answered for her. "Let them experience it first. Some things have to be felt to be understood." As the intern hurried away, Alice turned in James's arms. "Look at us, breaking all the rules." "Not breaking," he corrected. "Rewriting." Speaking of which, he reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I was going to save this for later, but—" Alice's breath caught as he opened it, revealing not a ring, but a key. "The apartment above the jazz club," he explained softly. "I bought the building." "You did what?" "They were going to sell it to developers, turn it into luxury condos." His eyes held hers. "That stage was where you first sang your truth to me, where I finally understood what mattered. It deserved to be preserved." Tears threatened to spill from Alice's eyes. "The apartment is yours, or ours, whatever you want." He brushed a thumb across her cheek. "No pressure, no expectations, just possibility, like everything else between us." Before she could respond, the first guests began arriving. The next hours passed in a blur of greeting dignitaries, overseeing service and fielding compliments about the revolutionary design that allowed guests to watch their food being prepared while enjoying live music. Finally, as the evening reached its peak, Alice took the stage. The room fell silent, every eye on her as she adjusted the microphone. "3 months ago, someone tried to burn down my kitchen," she began, her voice clear and strong. They thought they were protecting something, tradition, hierarchy, the way things had always been. What they really did was free us to imagine how things could be. She looked out at the gathered crowd, CEOs and line cooks, board members and baristas, all sharing tables and breaking bread together. This song is called 9 Floors of Love. It's about distance and courage and the walls we build around our hearts, but mostly it's about what happens when we're brave enough to tear those walls down. As she began to sing, James moved through the crowd to stand directly before the stage. Their eyes met, and in that moment, every flaw, every barrier, every doubt dissolved. The song soared, telling their story, the voice that drifted up, the heart that drifted down, the courage it took to meet in the middle. When she finished, the silence was profound before the room erupted in applause. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the cleanup was complete, Alice and James stood in their transformed space. Through the windows, Portland's lights twinkled like stars. "So," he said softly. "About that key," Alice smiled, taking it from the box he still carried. "I think it's time for a new song, one about home and trust and the courage to say yes." "Is that a yes?" She pulled him down for a kiss that held all the music in her heart. "That's a yes to all of it, to everything." From somewhere in the building, the night cleaning crew had turned on the radio. The sound drifted through the new, more connected spaces, no longer separated by 9 floors of silence, but united by something stronger than steel and glass. Love and music and the courage to be real. Alice began to hum their song again, soft and sweet in the quiet space. James held her close, swaying gently to the melody that had brought them together, changed them both, made them whole. And in that moment, they both knew some distances are meant to be crossed, some walls are meant to be broken, some songs are meant to be sung together, forever. The end 1 year later. The Blue Note Jazz Club hummed with anticipation on its anniversary night. The exposed brick walls now displayed black and white photographs documenting the past year's transformation, not just of the building, but of Portland's entire corporate culture. There was Alice in her kitchen, teaching CEOs from other companies how to make bread while discussing workplace equality. James at the community tables, sharing lunch with interns and executives alike. The two of them at industry conferences, speaking about authentic leadership and the power of breaking down barriers. But tonight wasn't about business. Tonight was about music, love, and celebration. Alice stood on the familiar stage, wearing a flowing ivory dress that caught the light like morning sun. Her curls were adorned with tiny blue flowers, matching the sapphire pendant at her throat. A gift from James that morning, along with a note that read, "For all the songs yet to come." The club was filled with faces from every floor of Everhart Technologies, along with family, friends, and even a few former skeptics who'd become believers. Natalie sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes, even though the ceremony hadn't started yet. As Alice began to sing, the crowd fell silent. This wasn't one of her usual songs about transformation or courage. This was something new, a wedding vow set to melody, a promise wrapped in music. James appeared at the back of the club, moving toward her with the same purposeful stride that had first brought him down to her kitchen. But now there was no hesitation, no corporate mask, just pure joy as he reached the stage. They had chosen this place for their wedding because it was where their truth had first been sung. The judge who would marry them stood ready, but first, they had their own traditions to honor. Alice's voice carried the last notes of her song vow. 9 floors couldn't keep us apart. Now not even time will do. Every song I sing, every meal I make, every moment. Love leads back to you. James took her hands, and to everyone's surprise, began to sing back. Not with her practiced skill, but with raw, honest emotion. He had spent months secretly learning this response, this melody that spoke of walls torn down and bridges built, of love that transformed not just 2 hearts, but an entire world. Their voices joined together, imperfect but beautiful, as they exchanged traditional vows and then rings. The judge pronounced them married, but it was their final duet that sealed the promise. From ground floor to skyline, from silence to song, we'll keep building bridges where walls stood for too long. At the reception that followed, the community tables from their unified kitchen had been brought in, creating one continuous flow of connection and conversation. Alice's team had outdone themselves with the catering, each dish telling part of their story, from that first soul-warming soup to the elaborate fusion cuisine that now made their corporate kitchen Portland's most exclusive reservation. Later, as evening settled into night and the dancing slowed, Alice and James slipped away to their apartment above the club. The space had become a perfect blend of their styles, his clean lines softened by her colorful touches, her artistic chaos grounded by his sense of structure. On their small balcony overlooking the city, James held Alice close as she hummed their wedding song. "Happy?" he asked, though her joy was evident in every note. "More than," she replied, then laughed softly. "Though we did scandalize half the corporate world by having a CEO and his head chef get married on stage in a jazz club." "Good," he kissed her temple. "Let them be scandalized. Let them see what's possible when you let love write the rules." Below them, the sounds of their celebration continued. Music and laughter, harmony and hope. Their friends and family, once separated by 9 floors of corporate hierarchy, now danced and dined together as one community. "You know," Alice mused, "they're calling us revolutionaries in the business press, the couple who reinvented corporate culture." "They're missing the point," James said softly. "We didn't set out to reinvent anything. We just loved each other enough to be real. Everything else followed from that." Alice turned in his arms, a new melody already forming in her heart. "Speaking of following," she took his hand and placed it on her stomach, still flat, but holding their newest song. James's eyes widened with wonder. "Really?" Her smile was radiant. "Really, due in winter? I thought maybe we could name them Melody or Harmony," he suggested, voice thick with emotion. Above them, Portland's stars twinkled like musical notes on heaven's staff. Below, their loved ones celebrated the power of love to break down walls. And here, in their private moment, a new movement of their song was already beginning. 9 floors had once stood between them. Now not even the sky was the limit. The music played on, and their love story, it was just getting started. In The Song from Downstairs, Alice and James had to face social barriers, prejudice, and their own insecurities in order to build something real. Often the fear of being judged or not belonging to a certain social circle prevents us from following our heart. If you could write your own love song, what would be the biggest barrier you would need to break down in order to experience authentic and true love? Fear of social judgment, personal insecurities, cultural or social differences, or perhaps the fear of allowing yourself to be vulnerable. The empty 47th floor of Boston's Griffin Tower hummed with the quiet desperation of late-night corporate America. Yasmin's reflection ghosted across the floor-to-ceiling windows as she pushed her cleaning cart past rows of empty desks. Her long, straight black hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, her elegant features striking even in the harsh fluorescent lighting that made her rich ebony skin seem to glow. The navy blue uniform of elite cleaning services didn't quite hide her slender figure, though she'd carefully adjusted it for modesty. She paused, adjusting one of her knockoff AirPods. Taylor Swift's latest country single played softly, her guilty pleasure, one she'd never admit to anyone. The song almost masked the sound of frustrated typing coming from the corner office. "Don't get involved," she told herself. "Just do your job and get home to Noah." Her 7-year-old son would be waiting up again despite her texts begging him to sleep. He'd be curled up in his worn Spider-Man pajamas from Target, playing Minecraft on the second-hand laptop she'd gotten from Goodwill, pretending he wasn't worried about his mom working so late. The typing stopped, replaced by a string of muttered curses that definitely weren't meant for cleaning staff ears. Yasmin hesitated. She'd learned the hard way that some people didn't appreciate help from the help. But something in that voice, frustration edged with genuine despair, made her turn around. The corner office door was open, warm light spilling into the darkened floor. Through the glass walls, she could see a man hunched over a MacBook Pro, his expensive suit jacket discarded over a chair, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Even in his distressed state, his athletic frame and commanding presence were unmistakable. Marcus James Owen, the nameplate read, CEO. Yasmin's heart skipped. She'd seen him before, of course, in company newsletters, striding through lobbies, his Asian-American features and tall frame striking in perfectly tailored suits, but never this close, never this human. She should walk away. She had 3 more floors to clean before her shift ended at 2 a.m. Then 4 precious hours of sleep before her morning shift at Denny's. Yara would be home alone with her dark thoughts, and Noah needed his medicine. "Excuse me?" Her soft voice surprised even herself. "I couldn't help but overhear. Is everything okay?" Marcus looked up, and Yasmin's breath caught. His dark eyes were intense, even through his obvious exhaustion, his chiseled features shadowed with stubble that probably hadn't been there that morning. "I'm fine," he said automatically, then seemed to really see her. His expression shifted from dismissive to desperate in a heartbeat. "Actually, no. I have a board presentation in 6 hours and my laptop just crashed. I can't access any of my files, and IT isn't answering at this hour." Yasmin twisted her cleaning cloth between her hands. I took a computer course once, at the Tech Future Community program. Maybe I could—" She trailed off, suddenly aware of how presumptuous she sounded. A cleaning lady offering tech help to a CEO, but Marcus was already standing, hope warring with skepticism on his face. "You know about data recovery. Basic stuff," she admitted, "but sometimes basic is all you need." He gestured to the chair beside him, and Yasmin felt the weight of worlds shifting. She should be cleaning, should be hurrying home, should be doing anything but sitting down at a CEO's desk at midnight. But she sat. The familiar scent of coffee lingered in the air. Expensive coffee, not the break room stuff she was used to. Marcus leaned close as she began typing, his cologne subtle but intoxicating. His Patek Philippe watch probably cost more than her annual salary, yet here he was, watching her work with the same hope she saw in Noah's eyes when his games wouldn't load. "There," she said after a few minutes of focused typing. "Try it now." Marcus reached past her to test the system, his arm briefly brushing hers. The files opened smoothly, his presentation intact. "How did you—" He stared at the screen, then at her, really seeing her for the first time. Yasmin stood quickly, smoothing her uniform. "Just a simple recovery trick. I should get back to work." "Wait," Marcus called as she reached the door. "I never got your name." She hesitated, one hand on the doorframe. "Yasmin. Yasmin Foster." "Thank you, Yasmin Foster." The way he said her name made it sound like poetry. She nodded and slipped away into the darkness of the empty office floor, her heart pounding. It wasn't until she reached the elevator that she realized she was smiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Yara. "Where are you?" "I can't sleep." Reality crashed back. Her 16-year-old sister was struggling again, fighting the same demons that had taken their mother. Noah needed his medicine. Bills needed paying. The elevator doors closed on the 47th floor, but Yasmin couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in her carefully balanced world. She just didn't know if that was a good thing or not. As she descended toward her normal life, Marcus Owen sat in his corner office, staring at his recovered files, but seeing only a pair of expressive brown eyes and a gentle smile that had just changed everything. Neither of them knew it yet, but that simple interaction, a crashed laptop, a quiet offer of help, a moment of genuine connection, would ripple through their lives in ways neither could imagine. Sometimes destiny writes its best stories in computer code and cleaning schedules, in midnight encounters, and moments of simple kindness. But for now, the night stretched ahead, full of possibilities and dangers, dreams and responsibilities, all balanced on the edge of a choice that had already been made. And somewhere in Boston, a little boy in Spider-Man pajamas waited up for his mother, unaware that his world was about to change forever. The fluorescent lights of Denny's at 6 a.m. had a way of making everything look both harsh and unreal. Yasmin's reflection in the chrome coffee maker showed dark circles under her eyes that even her careful makeup couldn't fully hide. She'd managed only 2 hours of sleep after her cleaning shift, her mind replaying that midnight encounter in the corner office like a scene from a movie she couldn't quite believe she'd starred in. "Order up for table 7. The cook's voice snapped her back to reality. 2 plates of Grand Slam breakfasts waited under the heating lamps, their edges already starting to curl, just like her tips would curl if she didn't move faster. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket, another reminder about Noah's antibiotics prescription waiting at CVS. 4267 that she didn't have, not after paying for Yara's antidepressants last week, the same medication their mother had taken before. "Mom!" Noah's voice cut through her thoughts. He sat at the counter in his Washington Elementary School uniform, already showing signs of wear though the semester had barely started. His homework was spread across the Formica surface. She'd brought him to work after finding Yara had another sleepless night, too drained to get Noah ready for school. "Just a minute, baby," Yasmin called, balancing the plates with practiced grace. Table 7 was a pair of suited businessmen who barely looked up from their phones as she served them. Their watches caught the light, not quite Patek Philippe level, but enough to remind her of different hands, a different watch, just hours ago. "Mom, look." Noah held up his math worksheet, pride beaming through his gap-toothed smile. Ms. Reynolds said I might get to join the advanced math group. Yasmin's heart swelled, even as it ached. Her boy, so bright, so full of potential, doing his homework at a Denny's counter because their apartment's electricity was spotty again. That's amazing, sweetie. We'll celebrate with pancakes, okay? With chocolate chips? His eyes lit up, so much like her own. Half portion, she compromised, knowing she'd have to skip her own breakfast to make up the difference. And only if you finish that worksheet. The bell above the door chimed. Yasmin turned, coffee pot already in hand, and nearly dropped it. Marcus Owen stood in the doorway of Denny's, his 6'1" frame somehow making the familiar restaurant feel smaller. His perfectly tailored grey suit looked out of place among the vinyl booths and sticky menus. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. "Good morning," he said, and somehow those two words carried more weight than they should. "Good morning, sir," Yasmin replied automatically, professionalism snapping back into place like armor. "Would you like to be seated?" He nodded, following her to a booth. Up close, he looked as tired as she felt. His board presentation must have finished recently. Had he come looking for her? No, that was ridiculous. Rich CEOs didn't track down cleaning ladies at Denny's. "Just coffee, please," he said, then glanced at her name tag as if he hadn't spent the last 6 hours remembering her name. Yasmin. She poured his coffee with steady hands, though her heart raced. The morning light through the window caught his features, softening them. Without the desperate edge of last night, she could see the subtle signs of his heritage in his face. Proud cheekbones, dark eyes that held stories of immigrant parents' sacrifices. "Mom!" Noah called again. "Is 7 times 8 56 or 64? 56, Yasmin and Marcus answered simultaneously. Noah looked up, curious. "Are you good at math too, mister?" "Noah," Yasmin started, but Marcus was already smiling. "I like to think so," he said. "I used to help out at my parents' restaurant, doing all the calculations for inventory and expenses. Math became like a friend." Noah's eyes widened. "Did you have a restaurant? With fortune cookies and everything?" "Noah!" Yasmin felt her cheeks burn. "I'm so sorry, sir. He doesn't mean to." "It's fine," Marcus laughed, and the sound was surprisingly warm. "Actually, it was a fusion place. My dad's Chinese recipes mixed with my mom's Korean ones. And yes, we had fortune cookies, though my grandmother insisted they weren't authentic." Yasmin watched in amazement as her son and her CEO, no, not hers, just the CEO, fell into an easy conversation about food and numbers. Noah showed off his worksheet, and Marcus pointed out clever ways to solve the problems, his Forbes-worthy business persona melting into something more real. Her phone buzzed again. Yara. Skipping first period. Can't face everyone today. Reality crashed back. Yasmin needed to get Noah to school, pick up medications she couldn't afford, convince her sister to keep fighting battles she herself barely understood. "I should get back to work," she said softly. Marcus looked up, something unreadable in his expression. "Of course, thank you for the coffee." He pulled out his wallet, leaving a $100 bill on the table. "Keep the change." "Sir, I can't—" "For Noah's college fund," he said quietly, then louder. "Thanks for helping me with math, buddy. Keep working hard." Noah beamed. "Mom, can Mr. Owen come to my school's math fair next month?" The question hung in the air like morning mist, full of impossible possibilities. Marcus paused halfway out of the booth, his expression softening as he looked at Yasmin. We shouldn't keep Mr. Owen from his important work," Yasmin managed. "Right," Marcus agreed, though something in his voice suggested he wanted to say more. "Have a good day, Yasmin Foster." She watched him leave, the $100 bill burning a hole in her apron pocket. Pride warred with necessity, dignity with desperation. In the end, she tucked it away. Noah's medicine wouldn't pay for itself. The morning rush was starting, more customers filing in. Life didn't pause for moments of connection or impossible dreams. But as Yasmin moved through her familiar routine of coffee pours and order takes, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of her carefully ordered world. And in his Tesla, driving away from Denny's, Marcus Owen found himself Google searching elementary school math fairs in Boston, wondering when exactly his life had started feeling empty of everything except board meetings and profit margins, and why a simple breakfast stop had filled some void he hadn't even known existed. The sound of breaking glass shattered the pre-dawn silence of the Foster apartment. Yasmin burst from her bedroom to find Yara standing in the dim kitchen, surrounded by the remains of their mother's favorite coffee mug, one of the few things they'd kept after the funeral. "I'm sorry," Yara whispered, her box braids casting shadows on her tear-stained face. I couldn't sleep, and I thought maybe if I made coffee like Mom used to." Yasmin's heart broke at the sight of her 16-year-old sister, wearing one of their mother's old Bath and Body Works uniforms she'd started sleeping in. The morning light hadn't yet breached their small apartment's windows, but the harsh glow of Yara's phone on the counter displayed multiple missed calls from her school counselor. "It's okay, baby girl," Yasmin soothed, carefully stepping around the ceramic shards. "We'll clean this up together." "No, it's not okay," Yara's voice cracked. "Nothing's okay. I keep breaking everything I touch, just like—" She cut herself off, but they both knew the end of that sentence. "Just like Mom." Before Yasmin could reach her sister, Noah appeared in the hallway, Spider-Man blanket dragging behind him. "Yaya, are you hurt?" The sisters exchanged a quick glance, years of protecting Noah's innocence kicking in automatically. Yasmin forced a smile. "Everything's fine, baby. Why don't you go get ready for school? I packed your Minecraft lunch bag already." But Noah, too perceptive for his 7 years, looked between them with worried eyes. "Is it because of the mean girls at Yaya's school? I saw on her TikTok—" "You've been on my phone," Yara snapped, then immediately regretted it when Noah flinched. "I just wanted to see your funny videos," he mumbled. Yasmin's phone buzzed, her morning alarm for her Denny's shift. In 3 hours, she'd need to be back at Griffin Tower for her cleaning job. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. "Noah, bathroom, now." "Yara, sit." Her voice took on the tone their mother used to use, firm but loving. "We're having a family meeting." Once Noah was out of earshot, Yasmin took Yara's trembling hands. "Talk to me. What happened at school?" Yara's facade crumbled. "They found my antidepressants in my bag during gym. Started calling me crazy girl on Snapchat. Said I'd end up just like—" She choked back a sob. "The counselor wants to have a family discussion about my concerning behavior." Yasmin closed her eyes, remembering similar meetings about their mother. The same concerned looks, the same carefully worded suggestions, the same helplessness. "I'll call out of work. We'll go together." "No," Yara pulled away. "We can't afford it. I saw the CVS notifications about Noah's medicine." "I'm not stupid, Yasmin. I know we're barely hanging on." Before Yasmin could respond, a knock at the door froze them both. Through the peephole, she saw their landlord, Mr. Patterson, shifting impatiently. "Ms. Foster, your rent check bounced." Again. Yasmin's chest tightened. She'd been counting on her cleaning job bonus, but after missing shifts to care for a sick Noah last week— "Just a moment," she called out, then whispered to Yara, "Get Noah ready for school. We'll figure this out." Opening the door just enough to slide through, Yasmin faced her landlord in the hallway. But as she prepared her usual litany of promises and explanations, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. "Is everything all right?" Marcus Owen stood at the stairwell, looking somehow both out of place and perfectly natural in the rundown apartment building. His casual clothes, designer jeans and a soft grey Henley that did nothing to hide his athletic frame, suggested this wasn't a business visit. "Mr. Owen?" Yasmin's mind raced. "How did you—" "I had some paperwork for you," he said smoothly, holding up a manila envelope. "From HR, about the computer assistance the other night." Mr. Patterson's demeanor shifted instantly at the sight of Marcus's Rolex and casual display of authority. "Oh, you're Miss Foster's employer?" "Yes," Marcus said simply, but something in his tone made the landlord straighten. "Is there a problem?" "Just a small banking error," Yasmin interjected, pride warring with circumstance. "I'll have it sorted by—" "It's taken care of," Marcus said, surprising both of them. He pulled out his phone, tapping quickly. "I've just transferred this month's rent to the building's account, a bonus for Ms. Foster's exceptional IT work." Mr. Patterson's phone dinged, confirming the transfer. He retreated quickly, leaving Yasmin and Marcus in a hallway heavy with unspoken words. "You can't do that," she finally managed. "I can, and I did." His dark eyes held hers. "Consider it professional compensation. Your help saved me from a disastrous board meeting. I was just doing my job." "No," he cut in softly. "Your job was cleaning. You went above and beyond. Let someone do the same for you." Before she could respond, the apartment door opened and Noah bounded out, now dressed for school, but with his shirt buttoned wrong. His face lit up. "Mr. Owen, did you come to help with more math?" Marcus knelt to Noah's level, smoothly fixing his buttons while talking. "Actually, I was wondering if your mom had thought more about the math fair." Over Noah's head, their eyes met. In that moment, Yasmin saw not a CEO or a savior, but a man looking for something real in a world of corporate facades. Still, "We can't accept," she started. "Mom!" Yara's panicked voice came from inside. "The bathroom sink is overflowing." Reality crashed back like the morning's broken mug. Yasmin turned to deal with the latest crisis, but Marcus's hand caught her arm gently. "Let me help," he said quietly. "Not because you need it, but because sometimes the strongest thing we can do is accept support when it's offered with respect." Through the open door, they could see Yara trying to contain the water with their dwindling supply of paper towels, Noah offering his Spider-Man blanket as backup, and the morning sun finally breaking through their dusty windows. It painted the scene in shades of gold and shadow, much like their lives, beauty and struggle intertwined. And in that moment, standing in a run-down hallway between two worlds, Yasmin Foster faced a choice that had nothing to do with pride or money, and everything to do with trust. Sometimes the hardest walls to break aren't made of glass at all, but of the protective barriers we build around our hearts. The Griffin Tower employee break room buzzed with whispers that seemed to follow Yasmin like persistent shadows. Her cleaning cart stood forgotten in the corner as she stared at her phone, reading the email from Yara's school counselor for the third time. "Urgent meeting requested, concerning behavior, family support system evaluation." A burst of laughter from a group of office workers made her look up. They quickly averted their eyes, but not before she caught the words CEO and charity case floating in the air between them. Her reflection in the break room window showed her carefully maintained appearance, straight hair smoothed to perfection, uniform pressed despite the early morning wrestling with the broken sink, makeup covering the exhaustion of another sleepless night. But no amount of concealer could hide the weight of the morning's events. "Did you hear?" a young intern whispered too loudly to her friend by the coffee machine. He was seen at her apartment building. "Jenny from accounting says." The break room door opened and Marcus strode in, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne and the sudden silence that accompanies authority. But today, instead of his usual purposeful walk to the executive elevator, he paused at the coffee station. "Yasmin," he said, his voice carrying in the quiet room, "do you have a moment?" She felt every eye on them as she followed him out, her heart pounding. In the relative privacy of the hallway, Marcus's professional facade softened. "About this morning." They both started simultaneously. A small smile tugged at his lips. "You first." "The rent money," Yasmin said quietly. "I can't accept it. I'll figure something out." Marcus leaned against the wall, his height making him seem protective rather than intimidating. "Would you accept a business proposal instead?" Before she could respond, her phone vibrated. A text from Noah's teacher. "Noah fell asleep in class again. Is everything okay at home?" Marcus noticed her expression change. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said automatically, then corrected herself. "Everything. My son's struggling at school. My sister's counselor thinks I'm an inadequate guardian. My landlord's breathing down my neck, and now everyone thinks—" She cut herself off, realizing she was unloading on her boss. But Marcus's dark eyes held nothing but understanding. "What do they think, Yasmin? That I'm trying to— that we're—" She gestured helplessly between them. "Having a torrid affair where the CEO saves the poor cleaning lady?" His tone was gently mocking, not of her but of the gossip. "I think we're both more interesting than that stereotype." Despite everything, Yasmin felt a laugh bubble up. Slightly more complicated at least. "Speaking of complications," Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her an email. "The IT department is impressed with your handling of my computer crisis. They're looking for someone to train in basic tech support for after-hours emergencies. Regular hours, better pay, benefits." Yasmin's heart leaped, then plummeted. "I don't have a degree. You have experience and natural talent. The rest can be learned." He paused. "Think about it. Not as charity, as an opportunity you've earned." The hallway suddenly felt too small, too intimate. Through the glass walls, Yasmin could see office workers trying not to stare. "I should get back to work," she said softly. "Yasmin," Marcus's voice stopped her. "About the math fair. Noah mentioned it's this Friday." She turned back, surprised he remembered. "Yes, but I'll be there. Simple, definitive. Not as your boss. Not as anything except someone who thinks your son is brilliant and deserves support." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the CVS pharmacy. "Prescription ready for pickup. Foster, Yara, sertraline 50 mg. Balance due, $147.83. The same medication their mother had taken, the same battle playing out in a new generation. Marcus saw the color drain from her face. "What is it?" "I need to make some calls," she said, already calculating which bill she could delay this time. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Owen, but—" "Marcus," he corrected gently. "At least when we're not surrounded by gossips and glass walls." A commotion down the hall caught their attention. Yara stood by the security desk, her school backpack clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "I need to see my sister," she was telling the impassive security guard. "Please, it's important." Yasmin was moving before she could think, Marcus right behind her. The security guard straightened at the CEO's approach, but Marcus's attention was on Yara. "Let her through, James," he said quietly. "She's family." That word, family, hung in the air, like a promise or a prayer. The security guard quickly issued a visitor's pass, and Yara flew into her sister's arms. "I couldn't do it," Yara sobbed. "They were all staring, whispering, just like they did with Mom. The counselor wanted to talk about residential treatment options, and I ran." Yasmin held her sister, feeling her shake. Through the lobby windows, she could see students getting off a school bus for a corporate tour, their lives so different from the reality playing out here. "Ms. Foster," the security guard started, clearly uncomfortable with the scene, but Marcus cut him off. "My office is free," he said. "Take all the time you need." Yasmin looked at him, really looked. Past the expensive clothes and corporate power, she saw someone who understood what it meant to carry the weight of family expectations and cultural pressures, someone who'd fought his own battles with identity and belonging. "Thank you," she whispered, meaning so much more than just the office space. As she guided Yara toward the elevators, Marcus's voice stopped her once more. "Yasmin, the IT position includes full health insurance for you and your dependents. Just think about it." The elevator doors closed on his words, reflecting back the image of two sisters holding each other up, while somewhere in the building, whispers continued to circulate about the CEO and the cleaning lady. But for once, Yasmin didn't care about the rumors. Because sometimes the most important choices we make aren't about love or money or even survival. They're about recognizing that strength doesn't mean carrying every burden alone. And sometimes help comes not in grand gestures, but in quiet offers of empty offices and filled prescriptions, in remembered math fairs, and gentle corrections from Mr. Owen to Marcus. Boston rain had a way of making even the simplest decisions feel heavy with consequence. Yasmin stood under the awning of Washington Elementary School, watching parents with expensive umbrellas hurry their children to luxury SUVs while she waited for the public bus with Noah. Her Target umbrella had finally given up during last week's storm, and replacing it hadn't made the priority list. "Mom, look!" Noah pointed excitedly at his math fair project propped carefully under his raincoat, a complex pattern of numbers and colorful graphs that had kept him up late into the night. "Do you think Mr. Owen will really come?" Before she could answer, a sleek Tesla Model S pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Marcus, dressed casually in a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Need a ride?" he asked, then added quickly when he saw her hesitation. "It's pouring and I'm headed to the tower anyway." Noah bounced excitedly. "Mom, look at his car. It's just like in my video games." A crack of thunder made the decision for her. As they settled into the leather seats, Noah's eyes wide at the massive touchscreen display, Yasmin caught Marcus watching her in the rearview mirror. He'd clearly come straight from CrossFit, his hair still damp from a shower, a gym bag visible in the back. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied, then turned to Noah. "So, tell me about your project." As Noah launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his mathematical patterns, Yasmin's phone buzzed. A text from Yara. "Don't freak out, skipped school again at the cemetery visiting Mom." Yasmin's heart clenched. The medication was helping, but some days the shadows were too heavy. She began typing a response, but another text came through. "I'm okay. Just needed to talk to her. Promise I'll be home for dinner." "Everything all right?" Marcus asked, catching her expression. "Just family stuff," she said, not wanting to burden him further. The rain intensified as they approached Griffin Tower. Noah pressed his face against the window, watching lightning illuminate the city. "Mom, can we show Mr. Owen my project before his important meetings?" Marcus caught her eye in the mirror again. "Actually, my morning is clear. I'd love to see it." They hurried through the lobby, past the curious stares of early morning employees. The security guard, not James this time, but a younger woman, did a double take at seeing the CEO escort a cleaning lady and a child to the executive elevator. In Marcus's corner office, Noah spread his project across the expensive conference table while Marcus listened with genuine interest. Yasmin stood by the window watching the storm while trying to ignore the whispers from passing employees. "This is brilliant," Marcus was saying to Noah. "The way you've connected the Fibonacci sequence to everyday patterns, that's college-level thinking." Noah beamed. "Ms. Reynolds says I could get into the gifted program, but—" He glanced at his mother, then dropped his voice. "It costs extra money." The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm clouds outside. Marcus looked at Yasmin, something unspoken passing between them. "Noah," he said carefully, "would you like to see something cool? Press that button on the wall. It controls the smart windows." While Noah played with the window settings, Marcus moved closer to Yasmin. "The IT position includes educational benefits for dependents." "Marcus, not charity," he cut in gently. "Investment in talent, both yours and his." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Yara's school counselor. Yasmin stepped into the hallway to take the call, her heart racing. "Ms. Foster, we need to discuss Yara's absences and recent behavior. Her latest writing assignment was concerning." Yasmin closed her eyes. "What did she write?" "A rather dark piece about following in her mother's footsteps. Given your family history—" "I'm handling it," Yasmin cut in, perhaps too sharply. "We're adjusting her medication and—" "Ms. Foster, without proper support systems and professional intervention, I'm concerned we may need to involve family services." The threat hung in the air like the storm outside. Yasmin's hand trembled as she ended the call. Through the glass walls, she could see Noah showing Marcus how to make a paper airplane out of a post-it note, both laughing as it sailed across the office. A hand touched her shoulder. Marcus had followed her out. "Bad news? They're threatening to involve CPS," she whispered, voice breaking. "Because of Yara's depression, my work hours, Noah's struggles at school. They think I can't handle it all." "You can't," he said softly, then quickly continued when she stiffened. "No one could. Not alone. I don't have a choice. You do." His dark eyes held hers. "Take the IT job. Let me help with Noah's gifted program. Not because you need saving, but because everyone needs support sometimes." Thunder crashed outside, and the office lights flickered. Noah pressed his face against the smart windows, watching lightning split the sky. In that flash of brightness, Yasmin saw everything clearly. Her pride versus her children's needs, her fear versus possibilities she'd never dared imagine. "I can't offer you charity," Marcus continued, his voice low and intense, "but I can offer you respect, opportunity, and—" He hesitated, then finished, "whatever this is between us." A commotion down the hall interrupted them. Yara stood there, soaking wet from the rain, clutching a dripping journal to her chest. Her box braids hung heavy with water, her Bath and Body Works uniform soaked through. "I went to see Mom," she said, her voice small. "I needed to tell her, to ask her." She swayed slightly, and Yasmin rushed to her side. "You're burning up," Yasmin gasped, feeling her sister's forehead. Marcus was already moving, calling his private doctor, ordering hot tea from his assistant, pulling a soft throw blanket from his office couch. The contrast was stark, Yara's wet fast-fashion clothes against the expensive blanket, Noah's paper airplane landing on antique hardwood, Yasmin's cleaning uniform standing out against the executive decor. But somehow, in that moment, it all fit. Like Noah's mathematical patterns, like the rhythm of rain against smart windows, like the way Marcus's hand found hers without hesitation or judgment. Because sometimes family isn't about matching pieces, but about finding people who fill in your empty spaces. And sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or fairy tales, but about paper airplanes and borrowed blankets, about showing up in the rain and staying through the storm. The private medical clinic on Beacon Street felt like another world. Yasmin sat in a plush leather chair, watching Yara sleep on an examination bed that probably cost more than their entire apartment's furniture. Marcus's personal physician, Dr. Bennett, had just finished examining her sister, and now stood conferring quietly with Marcus near the window. "Severe bronchitis," Dr. Bennett was saying. "The fever's concerning, especially given her emotional state. I'd recommend observation for at least 24 hours. Yasmin's hand tightened around her phone, where an urgent email from her Denny's manager blinked accusingly. "Third missed shift this month. Final warning." Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, working on his homework while sneaking worried glances at Yara. He'd insisted on staying, refusing to go back to school until he knew his ya-ya was okay. His math worksheet lay forgotten beside him as he drew what looked like a family portrait, 4 figures standing together. Marcus approached Yasmin, his casual sweater somehow not looking out of place despite the medical setting. Dr. Bennett knows an excellent adolescent psychiatrist. She has experience with cases like Yara's. I can't afford insurance, he reminded her gently. If you accept the IT position. Yasmin looked at her sister's pale face, so much like their mother's in those final days. I can't leave her alone to work full-time. The position includes flexible hours and remote work options. Marcus sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his subtle cologne. Yasmin, look at me. She did, finding those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her defenses. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. Let me help. Not as your boss, not as a CEO, but as... He paused, searching for the right words. As what? She whispered. Before he could answer, Yara stirred, mumbling in her fever-induced sleep. Mum, I'm sorry. Yasmin was there in an instant, stroking her sister's forehead. Shh, it's okay, baby girl. I'm here. Mum always said we were stronger together. Yara's eyes fluttered open, glassy with fever. But I keep trying to be strong alone. Those words hit Yasmin like a physical blow. How many times had she done the same thing? Your mother was right, Marcus said from behind them, his voice soft but firm. No one should have to be strong alone. Noah appeared at Yasmin's side, holding up his drawing. In careful child's writing, he'd labeled the figures. Mum, Yaya, me, and Mr. Marcus. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of medical equipment. Yasmin stared at the drawing, at this impossible family her 7-year-old had created, with Crayola markers and pure hope. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from her landlord. Maintenance coming tomorrow for sink. Rent increase next month due to repairs. Reality crashed back like a wave. I need to make some calls, she said, standing quickly. The Denny's shift, the landlord. Already handled, Marcus said quietly. Your manager agreed to medical leave and I spoke with Mr. Patterson about the repairs. You can't keep fixing everything, Yasmin protested, but her voice lacked conviction. No, he agreed, but I can stand beside you while you fix things yourself. Dr. Bennett returned with test results and prescriptions, explaining treatment plans that made Yasmin's head spin. But Marcus took notes on his phone, asking questions about drug interactions and therapy options. There's an excellent residential treatment facility, Dr. Bennett began, but Yara's monitors immediately spiked. No, Yasmin said firmly. We stay together. There are other options, Marcus interjected smoothly. Outpatient programs, home care support. Noah tugged at Yasmin's sleeve. Mum, can we show Mr. Marcus our special hot chocolate? The one that makes Yaya feel better? The simple request cut through the medical jargon and adult complications. Yasmin looked at her son, really looked at him. Despite everything, he still believed in the healing power of Swiss Miss with extra marshmallows and love. Special hot chocolate? Marcus asked, a smile tugging at his lips. Mom put cinnamon in it, Noah explained seriously, and whipped cream when we can afford it. It's magic. Magic hot chocolate does sound better than this. Yara managed a weak smile, the first real one in days. Marcus checked his Rolex. I know a place that makes excellent hot chocolate, and they deliver. Marcus, Yasmin started, but he held up a hand. Not everything is about money or help or fixing things, he said. Sometimes it's just about hot chocolate and being together. Dr. Bennett cleared her throat. The fever's stabilizing. With proper medication and rest. She glanced at Marcus, then added, perhaps home care would be best for now. Yasmin felt tears threatening. Home. They could go home. But home meant bills and work and... One step at a time, Marcus said softly, as if reading her thoughts. Today, we focus on getting Yara better. Tomorrow, he hesitated, then continued. Tomorrow, we can talk about everything else, including this. He gestured between them, acknowledging the unspoken thing that had been growing since that late-night computer repair. Noah held up his drawing again. Can we put this on the fridge? Next to my math test? Yasmin looked at the picture. 4 people, drawn in bright colors, standing together against a crayon blue sky. No class distinctions, no complications, just family. Yes, she found herself saying. Yes, we can. Through the clinic's windows, Boston's skyline glittered in the aftermath of the storm. Griffin Tower stood among the other buildings, where just hours ago everything had seemed impossible. Now, watching Marcus order hot chocolate while Noah explained the exact right number of marshmallows needed for magic, While Yara dozed peacefully under the expensive clinic blankets, Yasmin felt something shift inside her. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting alone, it's letting someone else help carry the weight. And sometimes family isn't what you're born into or what you've lost, but what you build from the broken pieces, one cup of hot chocolate at a time. The IT department's orientation room felt surreal at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Yasmin sat at a sleek computer terminal, her cleaned and pressed business casual outfit from Target, feeling both foreign and empowering. Her employee badge, no longer marked cleaning services but IT support, caught the morning light, making the change feel suddenly, startlingly real. Mrs. Foster, the IT director, a woman in her 50s named Janet Maxwell, placed a stack of training manuals beside her. "We'll start with basic systems overview, then." "Ms." Yasmin corrected gently. "And please, call me Yasmin." Her phone buzzed silently in her new work bag. A sophisticated leather tote Marcus had insisted was standard office equipment. A text from Yara. "First therapy session done. Dr. Rivera is actually cool. She has BTS posters in her office." Relief flooded through her. After a week of recovery at home, Yara had finally agreed to try therapy, but only after a long video call with Dr. Rivera, where the therapist had connected with her over K-pop and TikTok trends. "Your technical foundation is impressive," Janet was saying, reviewing Yasmin's preliminary assessment. "That night with Mr. Owen's computer showed real problem-solving skills." Yasmin's cheeks warmed, remembering how that late-night encounter had changed everything. Now, 2 weeks later, her life looked dramatically different. Yara was getting help. Noah was enrolled in the gifted program, and she was sitting in an office instead of cleaning it. A knock at the door made them both look up. Marcus stood there, casual in his Friday office attire. No tie, sleeves rolled up, showing the subtle strength of his forearms. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, though his smile suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "Just wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly." Janet beamed. "Mr. Owen, yes, we were just getting started. Yasmin's preliminary scores are excellent." "I'm not surprised," he said, his eyes meeting Yasmin's with warmth that had nothing to do with professional assessment. Her phone buzzed again. Noah this time. "Mom, I got an A+ on my science project. Mr. Marcus's idea about solar panels worked." The past 2 weeks had been full of such moments, Marcus helping Noah with homework over FaceTime, sending Yara encouraging texts about her therapy, appearing with coffee just when Yasmin needed it most. Small gestures that meant everything. "We should grab lunch," he said casually, "to discuss your training schedule." Janet's knowing smile suggested she saw right through the professional pretense, but her warm expression held no judgment, only understanding. "I have plans," Yasmin said reluctantly. "Yara's therapy appointment, then Noah's parent-teacher conference." "No, I know," Marcus smiled. "That's why I had lunch delivered to Dr. Rivera's office. We can all eat together after Yara's session." Before Yasmin could respond, another IT employee burst in. "Server crisis on 32, the trading system is down." Janet jumped up, but Marcus held up a hand. "Perfect training opportunity." "Yasmin?" She felt everyone's eyes on her. The CEO, the IT director, the panicked employee. 2 weeks ago, she would have shrunk under such attention. But now, "Let me take a look," she said, following them to the elevator with confident steps. The 32nd floor was chaos. Traders shouted into phones, technicians huddled around terminals, and the air crackled with panic. Yasmin approached the main server bank, her mind already racing through possibilities. "The system's rejecting all connections," a tech explained. "We've tried—" "Wait," Yasmin interrupted, spotting something familiar in the code scrolling across the screen. "I've seen this before in my Tech Future course." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, drawing on knowledge she'd thought long forgotten. The room fell silent, except for the click of keys and her soft muttering. "There," she said finally. "Try it now." Screens flickered, then came alive. The trading system rebooted, and a cheer went up across the floor. Janet stared at her in amazement. "How did you—" "Sometimes the simplest solutions get overlooked," Yasmin explained. "Basic programming often works better than complicated fixes." She felt Marcus's presence behind her, solid and supportive. "Like life," he said softly, for her ears only. Her phone chimed, a reminder for Yara's appointment. The contrast struck her. Minutes ago solving $1 million trading crisis, now rushing to make sure her sister didn't miss therapy. "Go," Marcus said, reading her expression. Janet can handle the paperwork. Family comes first. That word, family, didn't feel strange anymore when he said it. In the elevator, Yasmin caught her reflection in the polished doors. The woman staring back wasn't just a cleaning lady or a single mother or even an IT trainee. She was all of those things and more. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from Marcus. "Proud of you, all of you. Don't forget Noah's favorite hot chocolate for after his conference." She smiled, remembering their first real conversation about his parents' restaurant, about understanding the value of hard work and the importance of dreams. Now here she was, living a dream she'd never dared to have. The elevator opened on the lobby, and Yasmin stepped out with her head high. Employees who once barely noticed her now nodded in greeting. The security guard, James today, gave her a respectful "Ms. Foster" as she passed. Outside, Boston's spring sunshine painted everything in shades of possibility. Her new life stretched before her like an open road, not easier perhaps, but filled with support and hope, and her heart skipped as she spotted Marcus waiting by his Tesla, 2 cups of premium hot chocolate in hand. "Thought you might want company," he said simply. And standing there between her past and her future, Yasmin realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest changes don't come from grand gestures or dramatic moments, but from simple choices made with courage and love. Because transformation isn't always about leaving everything behind. Sometimes it's about bringing the best parts of your past into a future you never thought possible. And sometimes the strongest foundations are built not on corporate success or social status, but on hot chocolate promises and the quiet understanding that you don't have to face any challenge alone. The headline on the business news website glared from Yasmin's computer screen: "Griffin Tower CEO Marcus Owen's personal life under scrutiny. Sources question recent HR decisions." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the article, each word hitting like a physical blow. Anonymous sources questioning her rapid promotion, suggesting impropriety, drawing parallels to other corporate scandals. Worse were the comments section, where speculation about their relationship turned ugly and personal. Her phone lit up with a text from Marcus. "Don't read the news, it's nothing, we'll handle it." But it wasn't nothing. The careful balance they'd built over the past month, her new IT career, Yara's therapy progress, Noah's flourishing in the gifted program, and their quietly growing relationship, suddenly felt fragile as glass. A knock at her office door made her jump. Janet stood there, her usually warm expression worried. "Yasmin, the board's called an emergency meeting. They're asking questions." "About me," Yasmin said quietly. It wasn't a question. Her computer chimed with an urgent email. Noah's gifted program coordinator, concerning comments from other parents regarding scholarship funding sources. Meeting requested. The walls seemed to close in. Everything they'd built was being questioned, tainted by implications and whispers. Her phone buzzed again. Yara this time. "People at school talking about article. Can't handle the stairs. Please don't make me go to therapy today." Before she could respond, Marcus appeared in her doorway, his usual composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. "Yasmin, don't," she cut him off, standing. "Don't say it's nothing. Don't say we'll handle it. This is exactly what I was afraid of." The office had grown quiet, other employees pretending not to watch through glass walls as their CEO and the woman from the news article faced each other. "You've earned everything you've achieved here," Marcus said firmly. "Your technical skills are being questioned because of us," she finished. "My ability, my promotion, even Noah's school placement. They're painting it all as—" She couldn't finish. Janet cleared her throat. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Mr. Owen." Marcus didn't move. "Yasmin, please, let me handle this. Like you handled the rent, the medical bills, the school fees." Her voice cracked. "They're right. Everything in my life now is because of you." "No." He stepped closer, regardless of their audience. "Everything in your life is because of your strength, your determination. I just removed some obstacles." Her phone chimed again, a series of texts from Yara. "Kids sharing article in school group chat. Someone made a meme about us, can't breathe, having panic attack in bathroom. Don't want to end up like mom." That last message made Yasmin's blood run cold. She grabbed her bag, already moving. "I have to go. Yara needs me." "Let me drive you." "No." The force of her response made everyone in the office jump. "Can't you see? Your help, your involvement in our lives. It's making everything worse." The hurt in his eyes felt like a physical pain, but she pushed through it. "I need to handle this myself, my family, my job, my life. I need to know I can do it alone." "You can," he said softly, "but you don't have to." Another email notification popped up on her screen, the board requesting her presence at the meeting too, to clarify certain relationships and decisions. The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone. "Ms. Foster," Janet said gently, "whatever you decide about the meeting, you've proven yourself here. The whole IT team stands behind you." But Yasmin barely heard her. Her mind was racing through possibilities. Yara having a breakdown at school, Noah facing whispers at his gifted program, her own professional reputation in tatters. "I need to get my sister," she said, her voice distant. "Please tell the board." "Tell them what?" Marcus asked when she trailed off. Yasmin looked at him, really looked, at the man who had changed everything by believing in her, who had shown her son what a father figure could be, who had helped her sister find hope again, the man she was falling in love with, even though she'd fought against it. "Tell them," she straightened her shoulders. "Tell them I'll be back tomorrow, with proof of my qualifications, documentation of my technical experience, and my resignation if they require it. But right now, my sister needs me." She turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped her. "And what about what you need?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Through the glass walls, she could see people hurrying past, some obviously discussing the news on their phones. Her carefully constructed new world was fracturing, and she had to choose, fight or flight. Her phone buzzed one final time, a photo from Noah, him at his desk in the gifted program, proudly holding up a perfect math test. His smile was pure joy, untouched by the adult complications swirling around him, and in that moment, Yasmin realized something profound. Running away wouldn't protect her family from pain. It would only teach them to fear love, connection, and growth. Just like her mother's depression had taught them to fear vulnerability. "What I need," she said finally, turning back to Marcus, "is to know that everything we've built, my career, the kids' progress, us, isn't going to shatter because some people can't believe a former cleaning lady deserves happiness." Marcus stepped forward. Professional distance be damned. "Then let's prove them wrong. Together." The word echoed in her mind. Together. Not alone, not saved, but partnered. Equal. "I have to get Yara," she said, but her voice was stronger now. "And then we'll face whatever comes next." "We will," he promised. And somehow, even with scandal swirling and careers hanging in the balance, she believed him. Because sometimes the true test of love isn't in the grand gestures or the easy moments, but in standing firm when the world tries to tear you apart. And sometimes the strongest foundations are built not when everything is perfect, but when you choose to fight for what matters, even if it means facing every storm together. The Griffin Tower boardroom felt colder than usual, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a grey view of Boston's skyline. Yasmin sat straight-backed in her chair, her target blazer pressed to perfection, her portfolio of certifications and technical achievements laid out before her like armor. On the screen behind her, a PowerPoint presentation showed her completed projects, the trading floor crisis she'd solved, the security protocols she'd improved, the efficiency systems she'd implemented. 1 month of work that proved her worth beyond any doubt. "Ms. Foster," Board Chairman Richard Davidson adjusted his glasses, "your technical qualifications are impressive. However, Yasmin cut in smoothly, channeling ounce ounce of strength she'd developed as a single mother. You're concerned about the appearance of impropriety, about whether my relationship with Marcus, with Mr. Owen, compromises the company." The room fell silent. Marcus, sitting at the far end of the table as required by corporate governance, hadn't taken his eyes off her since she'd walked in. Her phone buzzed silently in her pocket. She knew without looking it would be Yara, waiting at Dr. Rivera's office with Noah. They'd insisted on being nearby during the meeting, a small family united in crisis. "The press coverage has been problematic," another board member offered. Yasmin opened her laptop, turning it to face the board. "I'd like to show you something." On the screen, lines of complex code scrolled past, the solution she'd implemented during the trading crisis. "This is proprietary code I wrote, not from any template, not from any course. Original work that saved the company millions in potential trading losses." She clicked to another screen. "And this is my original coding project from the Tech Future program, dated 7 years ago." Note the similar structure, the same innovative approach to problem solving. Janet, sitting in as IT director, leaned forward. "The similarities are remarkable. This proves, Yasmin continued, her voice steady, that my abilities existed long before I met Marcus Owen, Before I cleaned these offices, before I became someone you'd consider worthy of notice." She stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "I won't apologize for falling in love, but I also won't let you reduce my achievements to a scandal or my relationship to office gossip." Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from Noah appeared on her Apple Watch, a gift from Marcus she'd finally accepted. "Mom, we believe in you. Yaya's doing much better today." Drawing strength from those words, she continued, "My sister is winning her battle with depression. My son is thriving in a program that recognizes his genius. And I'm excelling at a job I earned through skill and determination." She turned to face Marcus directly. "Yes, Mr. Owen gave me opportunities, but I seized them. I worked for them. I proved myself worthy of them." "The timing of your promotion," Davidson began, "was based on merit," Janet interrupted. "I have documentation of every decision, every evaluation. Yasmin's technical solutions have already saved us more than her annual salary several times over." Marcus started to speak, but Yasmin held up a hand. This was her battle to fight. "I understand appearances matter," she acknowledged. "So let me be clear. I'm not asking for special treatment. Test me. Evaluate me. Compare my work to any IT professional in this building, but judge me on my merits, not on who I love." The word love hung in the air, the first time she'd said it out loud. Through the glass walls, she could see office workers trying not to stare, could imagine the whispers and tweets already circulating. Her watch showed another text, this time from Yara. "Dr. Rivera says Mom would be so proud of us right now, of you, and I am too." Tears threatened, but Yasmin blinked them back. "7 years ago, I took a computer course while pregnant, dreaming of a better future. 3 months ago, I cleaned these offices at night, teaching myself coding from YouTube between shifts. Today, I stand before you as a qualified IT professional who happens to be dating your CEO." She gathered her documents with steady hands. "If that's a problem, I'll tender my resignation, but know that you'll be losing an employee based on prejudice, not performance." The boardroom remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Davidson spoke. "Ms. Foster, would you and Mr. Owen give us the room to deliberate?" In the hallway, Marcus immediately reached for her hand, but Yasmin held back. "Wait," she said softly. "Whatever they decide, I need you to know something." His dark eyes searched her face, concern evident in every line of his features. "I love you," she said simply. "Not for what you've given us, but for how you've helped me believe in myself, in possibilities, in love itself." Before he could respond, the boardroom door opened. Davidson gestured them back in, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Foster," he began formally, "the board has reviewed your qualifications, your performance records, and the circumstances of your employment." Yasmin felt Marcus tense beside her. "We find no cause for concern regarding your professional appointment," Davidson continued. "Furthermore, while we recommend discretion in workplace interactions, your personal relationship with Mr. Owen does not violate any company policies." Relief flooded through her, but Davidson wasn't finished. "However," he added, "we would like to suggest one modification to your position." Yasmin's heart stuttered. "Sir, we'd like you to head up a new initiative, training and recruitment from non-traditional backgrounds, technical education for employees looking to advance, starting with the cleaning staff." Tears spilled then, but Yasmin didn't try to hide them. I would be honored." Her watch lit up with rapid-fire texts from Yara and Noah, who'd obviously been monitoring the situation through Janet's updates. "Yes, Mom." "You did it! Can we have celebration hot chocolate?" And suddenly, standing in that boardroom with her career intact and her dignity preserved, Yasmin realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't just about proving others wrong, but about proving yourself right. Marcus's hand found hers, and this time she held on tight. Because sometimes love isn't about being saved or being the savior. It's about standing together, fighting together, and believing together. And sometimes the most powerful answer to doubt and prejudice isn't anger or retreat, but simply standing firmly in your truth, holding tight to those who believe in you, and showing the world that love and success aren't mutually exclusive gifts. 6 months later, the 47th floor of Griffin Tower looked different in the evening light. Or maybe it was Yasmin who was different, standing in her office, the same corner office where she'd once cleaned floors and fixed a CEO's computer on a fateful night. Her reflection in the window showed a woman transformed, confidence in her posture, purpose in her eyes, and a small smile that spoke of hard-won contentment. Her business attire, no longer from Target but still chosen with careful consideration, suited her as naturally as her old cleaning uniform once had. "Ms. Foster," her assistant poked her head in. "Your 6 o'clock is here, the new training program candidates." Yasmin turned from the window, gathering the materials she'd prepared. "Send them in, please." 5 people filed in, all wearing elite cleaning services uniforms. She recognized that mixture of hope and uncertainty in their eyes. She'd worn it herself not so long ago. "Welcome to the Tech Future Corporate Initiative," she began warmly. "I'm Yasmin Foster, and 6 months ago I was standing exactly where you are now." Her phone lit up with a text from Yara. "Killed my college interview. Dr. Rivera's breathing techniques really helped. Love you." Pride bloomed in her chest. Her sister, now thriving in therapy and managing her depression, had applied to Boston University's computer science program. The same girl who'd once hidden in school bathrooms was now planning her future with confidence. "Mom!" Noah's voice carried through the office as he burst in, still in his advanced mathematics club uniform. "Mr. Peterson says I might be ready for high school math next year." Marcus followed more sedately, carrying Noah's backpack and what looked suspiciously like Celebration hot chocolate cups from their favorite cafe. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, not looking sorry at all. Someone couldn't wait to share his news. The cleaning staff candidates straightened, recognizing the CEO, but Yasmin noticed they relaxed when they saw how naturally Noah ran to her, how easily Marcus set the drinks down and helped straighten the boy's crooked collar. "Actually," Yasmin smiled, "your timing is perfect. Everyone, this is my son Noah, who taught me that mathematics can be magic, and this is Marcus Owen, who believed in second chances and the power of opportunity." She turned back to the candidates. 6 months ago I was working 2 jobs, raising 2 kids alone and dreaming of something more. Today I run IT operations and this training initiative, not because someone handed it to me, but because someone gave me the chance to prove what I could do." Her hand found Marcus's naturally as she continued, "That's what this program offers. Not charity, not handouts, but opportunity. The tools to build your own future." Noah, now settled with his homework at the small desk Yasmin kept in her office for him, piped up, "Mom's really good at teaching. She helped me understand algorithms before anyone in my class." The candidates chuckled, tension breaking. One young woman, barely older than Yara, raised her hand tentatively. "Ms. Foster, I'm a single mom too. My daughter's 3. Is it really possible to—" She gestured vaguely at the office, the view, the life Yasmin had built. "What's your name?" Yasmin asked gently. "Maria." "Maria, 6 months ago I was cleaning this very office at midnight. Now I'm running it. Not because of fairy tales or luck, but because I was given a chance and I worked hard to make it count." Her phone chimed again, a reminder about dinner. They were all expected at Marcus's parents' house, where his mother had finally perfected the fusion of Korean comfort food and American hot chocolate that Noah declared almost as good as Mom's magic recipe. Looking at the eager faces before her, Yasmin felt everything come full circle. The program takes dedication. You'll work your regular jobs, attend evening classes, complete technical certifications. It won't be easy. But you won't be alone, Marcus added, surprising everyone by speaking. This company believes in untapped potential, in second chances, in the power of opportunity combined with determination. Noah looked up from his homework. "Like how Mom helped fix your computer that night." Marcus smiled, the same warm smile that had first shown Yasmin the man behind the CEO title. Exactly like that. The candidates were taking notes now, hope replacing uncertainty in their expressions. Yasmin launched into the program details, explaining schedules, requirements, and opportunities, but part of her mind was already at dinner, where Yara would share her interview stories, Noah would explain his latest mathematical discovery, and Marcus's parents would argue lovingly about whose cultural comfort food better cured a hard day. Later that night, after the candidates left with applications in hand and hope in their hearts, after Noah had fallen asleep on Marcus's office couch surrounded by math worksheets, Yasmin stood again at the window. Marcus joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Proud of you," he murmured. "Proud of us," she corrected. "All of us." Her phone showed a final text from Yara. "Got the grades for early admission. Can we celebrate this weekend? Love you guys." Yasmin leaned back against Marcus, watching their reflection in the window. Behind them, Noah slept peacefully, his homework showing complex equations that would have scared her 6 months ago, but now filled her with understanding and pride. You know, Marcus said softly, that night when my computer crashed, I was working on a proposal about corporate responsibility and community investment. I never finished it. Why not? Because something better came along. Someone who showed me that real change doesn't come from proposals and programs. It comes from believing in people, from giving them not just opportunities, but respect. Yasmin turned in his arms. And love, he agreed, kissing her softly. Always love. Noah stirred on the couch, mumbling something about algorithms in his sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more candidates to train, more barriers to break, more battles to fight. But tonight, in this office where everything began, Yasmin Foster stood complete. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about dramatic rescues or fairy tale endings, but about two people who help each other become their best selves. And sometimes the most powerful magic isn't found in grand gestures or perfect moments, but in the quiet triumph of proving that with love, support, and determination, any destiny can be crossed, any future can be rewritten, and any heart can find its home. 2 years later, the autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves across Boston Common as Yasmin adjusted Noah's tie, a miniature version of Marcus's. At 9 years old, her son had insisted on matching his stepfather for this special occasion, right down to the carefully folded pocket square. "Mum, you're doing it again," Noah complained good-naturedly as she fussed with his collar. "Let her fuss," Marcus laughed, looking handsome in his charcoal suit. "It's a big day." And it was. The banner across Griffin Tower's entrance read, Tech Future Corporate Initiative, 2nd Anniversary Celebration and Graduation Ceremony. Below it, crowds gathered, employees, families, and most importantly, the newest graduating class of the program Yasmin had built from her own experience. Her phone buzzed with an incoming FaceTime call from Yara, now a sophomore at Boston University. Her sister's face appeared, bright with excitement despite the early hour in her dorm room. "I'm on my way," Yara exclaimed. "Just finished my morning classes. Save me a seat next to Maria and her daughter." Yasmin smiled, remembering the young single mother from that first class of candidates. Maria now ran the IT help desk, her daughter thriving in the same gifted program that had changed Noah's life. "Don't forget Mum's necklace," Yara added softly. "It's perfect for today." Yasmin touched the delicate chain around her neck, their mother's favorite piece of jewelry, now a symbol of how far they'd come from those dark days of depression and loss. Dr. Rivera had helped Yara frame it perfectly during one of their final therapy sessions. Mum's story didn't end with goodbye. It continued through the strength she gave us. The ceremony space filled quickly. 50 graduates in business attire, former cleaning staff, security guards, maintenance workers, all now certified IT professionals. Their families beamed with pride, many holding signs and flowers. In the front row, Marcus's parents sat with Noah, his mother dabbing her eyes already. Beside them, Janet from IT had come out of retirement specially for this day, wearing the Mentor of the Year pin Yasmin's students had given her. "Ready?" Marcus squeezed her hand as she prepared to take the stage. Yasmin looked out at the crowd. 2 years ago, she'd stood in this same building in a cleaning uniform, dreaming of something more. Now, she stepped to the podium, her confidence as natural as breathing. "Welcome, everyone. 2 years ago, a computer crashed and a life changed." The ceremony flowed perfectly. Graduates received their certificates, shared their stories, cried happy tears. Maria's little girl presented Yasmin with a hand-drawn card showing stick figures at computers, all wearing superhero capes. When the formal proceedings ended, families mingled over catered refreshments, including, of course, hot chocolate with the magic recipe Yasmin had shared with the hotel's chef. "Mrs. Owen?" One of the graduates approached hesitantly. "Still Ms. Foster professionally," Yasmin corrected gently, though her wedding ring caught the light as she spoke. "But please, call me Yasmin. Thank you, not just for the program, but for showing us it's possible. All of it." Yara arrived then, wrapping Yasmin in a fierce hug before pulling out her phone to show off her latest coding project. Noah immediately launched into an explanation of how her algorithm could be improved, making everyone laugh. Marcus watched his family with quiet joy, remembering that desperate night with a crashed computer and an approaching deadline. "Worth every crisis," he murmured. "What was that?" Yasmin asked. "Just thinking how some computer problems turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to you." Later that evening, they gathered at their home, a comfortable townhouse halfway between Griffin Tower and Noah's School. Not too luxurious, but full of warmth and life. Photos lined the walls: Yara's high school graduation, Noah's math competition victories, the intimate wedding ceremony, where they'd all shared cups of hot chocolate instead of champagne. Yasmin stood in the kitchen, watching through the window as Marcus helped Noah set up his new telescope in the backyard. Yara sat on the deck working on her coding assignment, occasionally calling out questions that Noah surprisingly could answer. Her phone showed a text from Maria. "My daughter got into the gifted program. Thank you for blazing the trail." Looking at her blended, beautiful family, Yasmin thought about destiny and choices, about cleaning floors and writing code, about love that transforms but never diminishes who you are. She touched her mother's necklace, then her wedding ring, then the newest addition, a small pendant Marcus had given her at the ceremony, engraved with a simple line of code that meant, "Create new beginning." The doorbell rang, their regular Sunday dinner guests arriving. Marcus's parents came bearing Korean dishes, while Janet followed with her famous apple pie. The house filled with laughter, multiple languages, and the smell of fusion comfort food. As they gathered around the table, Noah proudly showing off his latest mathematical proof, Yara discussing her summer internship plans, and Marcus's mother teaching Yasmin another secret recipe, Yasmin felt the completeness of her journey. Because sometimes the most beautiful endings aren't endings at all, but beginnings written in infinite loops of love and possibility. And sometimes the greatest achievement isn't in reaching a destination, but in creating a path for others to follow, lighting the way with hope, determination, and maybe just a touch of hot chocolate magic. In the end, every crossed destiny is just the start of a new algorithm, calculating infinite possibilities for those brave enough to believe in second chances, strong enough to fight for their dreams, and wise enough to know that love, pure, supportive, respectful love, is the most powerful code of all. Final author's note. Dear readers, this story celebrates not just romance, but the power of believing in yourself and others. It's about family, both born and chosen, and the courage to accept love in all its forms. What dreams are you holding back from? What chances are you afraid to take? Remember Yasmin's journey, and know that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple choice to believe in possibilities. Your story matters. Your dreams matter. And yes, your participation in this channel matters too. Please share your thoughts, your stories, and your own crossed destinies in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.